Hello, and welcome to Geek of All Trades, your podcast for all things geeky. Your hosts today are Doe Pretorius.
That doesn't sound low.
Greg Barlow.
What do you think happens to a stormtrooper when he retires?
And in our third chair,
Yashin Harry Passard.
I guess he's suffering from lunacy.
stay tuned and enjoy the show.
Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of a welcome. Yes, essentially, it's like a little bit of extra section that I'm adding in that I felt the first podcast started off kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Which was nice, actually.
I actually think that was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't have a problem with the beginning of your podcast. Let me say that.
Well, I mean, a lot of the feedback I got was people were like, "Which one was you and which one was Doe?" I mean, because
Yeah.
I was thinking of just saying like, "Hi, this is Greg," and he goes, "Yes," and this is Doe, and then you go, "And hi,
I'm the guest, yes.
yeah, kind of thing." And then it'll be like, "Hi, and welcome to episode 2." You know?
Okay.
Yeah. But now it's going to be completely stilted because
Exactly.
that was the organic version,
yeah.
and now we can't do that. But we totally just did it, so maybe I should use
Well,
that.
I didn't say like, hi, I'm Doe. No, I just did.
Right, okay, so now we've been organically introduced.
Success!
Smooth!
Totally.
The trick is to not tell us we're recording.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean,
Oh.
that's always the case. We're
Yeah.
always recording.
I know.
think.
It's
Yes.
just don't tell us and then it's smooth.
And yes, this is indeed episode 2, so we're 100% more than we were before.
Yeah.
We're twice as...
It's not often you're going to be able to say that.
No.
No.
It'll happen now and again, but it's going to get harder and harder.
Yeah, well, this time we can breach the 100 mark.
Good God. That's quite a lot of months.
Yeah, well, people listening to it who can breach the 100 and there.
Oh, yes, the 100 listeners limit. We're close to 100. We're at 90-something, 97. So.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed the first one, so I would hope that you guys end up getting some significant views.
Yeah, well...
It
Self-promotion.
It felt like a geek gathering.
Yeah, that's the general idea. So we can get started with our monthly what you doing.
Yeah, we still totally need to find a better
name
for
for that. In fact, let's make it. Let's see if we can get listeners to suggest what we call this section.
Yeah. Hopefully something not more Phineas and Ferb related.
What's your
that's
latest
not bad.
passion projects?
Passion project.
Let's be honest with ourselves. The definition of being a geek on something is that you are passionate about that something.
This is true. But it needs to be something catchy.
Passion project.
Passion projects.
Yeah, that
Like
sounds,
passion fruit,
That
but
sounds
better.
like a bad Mills and Boone novel, yes.
Yeah, it really does.
I agree with you, but I still think it's a good one.
So the section shall be called Mills and Boone.
Yeah, there's not enough puns in that.
No.
We could play a little terrible, like, English high-class orchestral piece, and we go,
We'd all need
passion project.
Yeah, but we'd all need monocles then.
We would.
Which,
We would.
hey,
Actually, we are all wearing monocles. You just can't see it from where you're listening. But we totally are.
I
And top hats.
can't stop laughing whenever anyone says monocles and brings up the issue of monocles, because in EVE Online there was a giant debacle involving monocles.
oh yeah, I remember that.
Where they attempted to sell
yes.
monocles for $120 for a digital character online.
Yeah.
Although I quite like the cyborg arms and stuff they sold.
They sold those for like $5, slightly less. And they tried to sell the monocle for $120, and they were quite serious about it. And you lose it if your character dies.
Well, that's just, yeah.
Get fucked.
Didn't they say, like,
Nope.
sorry about that, though, by giving everyone some free of that install money?
Yes, so in order to apologize for being money-grabbing whores, they gave us just enough so that we'd have to buy more currency to be able to buy things,
Right.
so that they could be better money-grabbing horrible people.
MMO Economics 101.
Well, I mean, I used my free in-game store money to buy double character training, so I was happy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I've,
got me dual
double
slot
character
training.
training is a very recent addition to what you can buy for Aurum.
Yeah.
I
Sounds
used
totally
it
like what's
to
it?
buy my pirate pants and shirt.
Which pirate fashion?
I went with Sancho.
Good old Sanchez Nation.
I love Sencha. If you've read the storyline behind Senchas, it's like exactly what I would do if I had that kind of technology. So they took Alzheimer's patients and people suffering from mental disabilities and removed their brains and added electronics. Not their whole brains, just the bits.
So they're gonna say like, "Hey, we're now zombies."
No, that's the Senchas nation. They removed all free will and thought, and then they became drones. Rather than live their lives as horribly damaged humans,
You can now be part of the greater good.
yes. And then they put them beneath the floor, like they built an entire floor on top of these people, and now those people work and clean everything beneath and like fix things underneath. And then on the surface, there's all the people who aren't computer-brained.
I can't help but like think it's kind of like Mechanicum-esque.
I can't help but think it's like China.
Topical.
Right. So, what you been doing? Yes.
Okay, well, I've been computer gaming.
Which games?
Primarily, I play EVE Online. I've been testing out Archeology.
How's the high seas treating you?
Very, 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 very badly.
Did you manage to get that farm that you were like trying to like
No,
get?
I still haven't received a farm at all. In fact, I keep getting sniped.
Yeah.
So tell us how that works. Why? How come the farm system's so hard to get hold of a farm? Or
Okay.
why is this specific farm you want to get?
So, in many MMORPGs, the way the housing systems work is called instancing, where when you try to claim a house, there's a place to go buy a house, and then whenever you enter into the door for the housing district, you go to the instance where your house is, like a completely different shard of the world that's not related to where someone else's house might be at all. Everyone sees the same district, but your district is like a parallel dimension. I keep using air quotes. This is not going to work.
It's okay.
You just
as
have
long
to
as
do
you
the
pause.
inclination and stuff.
I
we
changed my
determined
voice.
this in the last
I
episode.
changed my voice very slightly as well, but I don't think that will be overly well picked up. Anyways, it's like a parallel dimension just for housing, and it means everybody can get a house, everybody can decorate their house, it's all happy. Some people decided that competition is what really drives MMOs. Player versus player competition doesn't have to be throwing spells and stabbing everyone. It can also be market warfare and land warfare and so on and so forth. So in Archeology, there's limited land. The place is massive, but everybody exists on the same plane. There's no alternate planes. So when you try to claim a piece of land, it's only claimable if no one else has claimed it.
Prime
And-
real estate.
Prime real estate.
Now,
And
do
the
they-
closer you get to trade hubs and workshop hubs, the harder it is to get a piece of land, because workshop hubs allow you to carry super heavy packs that slow your character movement down. Very near from your house to the workshop hub means that you can carry it a short distance and then begin your journey to trade. By the way, the most powerful trade routes are the ones that travel through PvP areas. And therefore, while you are movement debuffed, you have to travel through dangerous areas. I think that's quite a wonderful...
That sounds very Eve.
It is pretty Eve. The market system actually works in the same way.
Okay.
But the most important thing about this claiming land thing is quite literally, the closer you get to a trade hub or a workshop hub, the more expensive the land becomes, and you have to buy it from other players. The guys who run the game don't produce more land, they don't make more land. The continent is there. And then everything got claimed in like the first 2 weeks.
So how many realtors have like popped up?
Actually, we've had a very significant number of realtors. I think there are in the vicinity of 200 on the North American servers, which is where I play.
Okay, so also like that was one of the things like I thought like so do they have a mega server sort of Wild Star style, or do they have multiple servers?
They have
that-
multiple separate servers, but
Okay.
the way the system works is a bit different in that the auction housing for each of the servers comes in groups. So they have 15 servers in total, but only 5 auction house groups. So on each of our auction house groups, multiple servers stuff is there. So the competition is across multiple servers, but the land space is significantly bigger because there's like 5 continents per auction house group or 3 continents per auction house group, which allows us to experience this market balancing thing going on where one guild on one server cannot imbalance the market in the same extent that, for instance, in EVE Online, you just mentioned, one guild working hard can imbalance an entire market group.
Can like destroy an entire however many years worth of work.
Which reminds me, actually, did you see that Amar just literally won faction warfare for themselves?
That happens every so often, actually.
Yes,
A couple of months ago, Minmatar, well, not months, I think it might have been
Must
a
have
year
been quite
now.
a while ago, because Minotaur just got trounced.
Yeah. Well, Minmatar, everyone, I'm sorry, the way that CCP handled their storyline when they first created the game was a bit... they created the Minmatar as underdogs, and unfortunately in our current society, being an underdog is so wonderful! So, the number of Minmatar people playing FW versus the number of people playing every other faction was just astounding at one point. And then the Minmatar trounced everyone, and people started to question if they were really the underdogs, if they outnumbered everyone 10 to 1. And then Minmatar just fell apart.
Well, actually, I think all the Minotaur players were like, okay, we've done that now. Let's go do piracy. And they all just left
They
their
all
systems.
left and did piracy. So the Amar have always had a fairly fixed number of people doing FW. We lose a couple, we gain a couple. Galente is whenever they can get up the urge to do it. Kaldari never really...
No, I actually fly Galente faction warfare. The Kaldari are okay, but they run away a lot.
Yeah, the Kaldari don't really feel the urge to fight in it. They like capping, but they don't like fighting. So the Kaldari are like, oh look, there are people, bye.
Just be like space gypsies or something sort of thing.
And the Galente are like polka dots. Every so often there's this giant surge of action, and then lots of empty space in between. Whereas the Amar, which is, I suspect, why they're doing so well at this point in time, they have a lower activity rate than, I think, all three of the other factions, really. But they have a better average activity rate. They just... There's always people who are willing to keep doing the Amar stuff, especially since their ships are so sexy. God.
So you claim.
My goodness. My goodness.
I actually have a original love of the Kaldari. Well, some of the Kaldari designs. Some of them are horrendous.
They're redesigning the ships, and I'm
Yes,
actually feeling they're losing some of the Kaldariness. Because part of the Kaldari design thing is, here is a octagon, now we're going to attach wings to it.
No. The original Kaldari designs were, here is an octagon. Now we're going to attach one wing to it asymmetrically.
Yes. Well, no, all of the ships had two wings. It's just one was like
A tiny wing.
20% compared to the other wing.
But they've moved away from that, and I actually I prefer the more symmetrical designs.
The more symmetrical designs,
like
yeah.
the Ravens.
I do
Aesthetically
feel
pleasing on the eyes.
I do feel like they're stealing some of the thunder away from what the original Kaldari was about. I liked their brick shapes.
Yeah, no, they're very angular, the Kaldari.
They're extremely angular. They're conservative of space. And if you stop and look at the designs, there were hints that the way it was designed was literally the bare minimum required to keep the crew alive, and that's it.
Frugal.
Like there was no paint on their metal
pinching.
other as well, if you will remember. They are flying around in unpainted ships.
Raw metal ships, yes.
Raw metal. And I thought that was such a cool choice. And now we're getting like these black gloss things and stuff, and I'm like, guys, no, be cheap.
No, well, only the really expensive ships get
Paint jobs.
paint jobs.
Fair
yeah.
enough.
Even then, it's probably like, old Ford style of any color as long as it's black.
Yeah. The other problem I obviously had was that when they updated the Galente, they took a lot of the shininess that Amar ships used to have, nobody else. Because Galente used to have this more matte, professional...
Polymer almost look.
Polymer
like plastics
look.
and
Very plasticky.
advanced polymer.
And I mean, they had their green and all of it, but it was plastic. And you were like, that's a cool new design. The shaping is wonderful, but the materials are horrible. And then Amar was always the gold. Oh my god,
they were
the
like
gold.
The chrome-plated ships of the universe,
Chrome and gold. That was what we did. And now I'm relegated to using the blood-splattered ships because the original gold just doesn't look that great. In fact, if you looked at it in PBR, I don't know if you have, the last patch that's coming up, I think,
yes, yeah.
applies PBR onto the game. They changed the gold on the Apocalypse and all of the ships in the line of the Apocalypse, so the Malor, etc., to ceramic.
Oh, okay.
Which I call what?
Yeah.
Because Amar's always been shiny gold ships.
Yeah, I wasn't really
That's
paying
the
attention
design.
to
Obviously,
the
they
Amar
stole some technology from one of the other factions.
Yeah, well, and then for those who are listening, the last faction of ships is Minmata, and they are duct tape and
Can I explain
spit
this?
okay, go ahead.
Somebody flew up to a space station or another ship, took like a pipe out and attached some engines and flew away with it.
No, engines and guns.
Engines and guns. Well, very
Little
They
guns.
did little guns, and then flew away with it. The
Machine
Minmatar
guns.
ships literally have wires hanging out to the back. They have like bits of girders coming out random places.
Solar panels everywhere.
Sounds very orky.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Minmatar race, also, they used to have a special effect when they entered into warp, where the ship would begin shaking violently as it began entering into warp. I was always applauding that whenever I saw it, because when you enter into warp in a fleet, you all enter into warp at the same time, the faster ships slow down. And you just see these Minmatar ships to your left going shaky, 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 while your ship's just like powering up like normal. So good.
Okay, so
Giant
we
derail.
segued into Eve. No, that's fine because that's what I've been playing lately.
Fantastic.
But it's fine. We can actually that'll be what I've been playing because I literally have. I've been playing Eve up the wazoo and training up my faction warfare alt and training up my industrial main. She's an industrial mission main. So
But Greg, I'm
She's
not
a-
done with what I'm playing. Carry on.
we'll get back to you.
Yeah, your poor warlock.
Yes.
No love.
No. Unfortunately, my Warlock, he hasn't been getting much love. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about this WoW expansion that's just it's not pulling me in. I don't know.
It feels
it's
like they attempted to attach too
probably-
many mechanics from other things altogether, and it doesn't feel like it applies to WoW.
No, I think it's fine. Everything. I think it's just because you
Don't
didn't
get me
play
wrong.
during Burning Crusade, so that's probably
I
why
actually-
you're
well,
not like
I
that.
actually think they did a good job. I like the systems. I'm just suggesting that Greg might feel like that.
No, because he played Wildstar sort of thing. Actually, when we got it in, and like that was a lot of like, hey, let's just grab everything and make it look awesome, and that was a lot of fun. But I think it's more of a storyline thing.
Well, I'm enjoying it. I mean, the storyline's not bad. I just
Hey, we get to see those things we cared about again.
again.
Well, it's more of a at this point. It's we get to do those things that we've heard about in Warcraft 2 and stuff. But
And the garrison was a good idea, but to me, it feels too much like I'm playing a phone game.
Yes,
That's-
timers and collection.
In that I have to log in every half an hour just to accept.
Oh,
Thank you guys for killing those orcs, but I wanted to go kill orcs.
chats like friends and stuff. If that entirely needs a phone app.
Yes, yeah. If you could do it on a phone app,
You know
that
what
would
else
probably make
needs
it
a
better.
phone app though? Dragon Age Inquisition. That stupid
But it has
war
one
table.
already.
That war table.
Yeah, but
Oh.
doesn't it have like an app already? I'm sure it
It
has.
doesn't
an
have a
already.
phone app, but it does have an iPad app that is a separate mini game that gives you items in the main game.
Okay.
How is Dragon Age Inquisition? I haven't played it yet.
I'm gonna say something that might sound controversial. The game itself is okay. The story is fantastic.
That's typical from BioWare.
Yeah.
But making it an open world game was a big mistake for them.
All right. Why?
Because they have the same wonderful BioWare storyline. Now, don't get me wrong, BioWare makes the same game over and over again, but they do it well. You like your characters, you like the storyline. But now they've decided to spread it out over a gargantuan area, and it's so spread out, and there's a lot of, there's little arrows pointing everywhere, so you never feel like there's a giant arrow pointing there. If you will remember Dragon Age Origins in particular,
Yes.
the Blight was chasing behind you in the beginning, and then it was before you after a while, and there was politics in between when you switched from one to the other. It always felt like I had a giant arrow in front of me. I could do lots of side quests.
I don't know about that sort of so much. The blight was always there, but you were like, well, I don't really need to worry about this. I can go and deal with the elves, and then go through half of the dwarven
But
games
you
sort of thing.
were dealing with the elves, and then you were dealing with the dwarves. There was an arrow in front of you. You could always choose a different path, but once you began down it, there was a path in front of you. I do feel like they took much of their lessons learned from... What's the Star Wars game they make? Not Knights
Old
of the Old
Republic.
Republic, just Old
Just
Republic.
Old Republic.
Old Republic. I think they took a lot of the lessons they learned from Old Republic and tried to apply it into this game. It feels a lot more like an MMO. It feels a lot more like a action bar MMO in particular.
That's why I heard a lot of people have commented and said it's very much like Mass Effect in a way.
It is Mass
where
Effect-y,
you can pause and such, but you don't really
it's
need
not
to because
really-
you can just run in and
Also-
spam your hot
It's like fireball.
Yeah.
I will also say I'm a huge fan of the pause and plan kind of RPG.
Yes, yeah. I
Baldur's Gate.
grew up on those.
Yeah, I don't like pausing in this. They did a port problem. I know it's a port problem, and I should forgive that to a certain
Well,
extent.
no, you shouldn't. It should never. It should have been on PC first and then ported to console.
It was on PC first. They programmed it on PC. I don't.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They
But-
obviously had because of the let's rotate because obviously we should have had triggers on our controller.
So the
keyboards.
controls don't let you use your mouse and keyboard. You have to use like Q and E to rotate.
as if
and-
you're using a controller.
As if you're using
on
a
your keyboard.
It's so clunky.
Well.
Oh
it
my
happens.
Yeah, I
goodness.
can just imagine on the higher difficulties as well. That must be impossible because you need your
You
planning.
need
thing
your
for
planning
that.
phase. I'm sure that if you turn the difficulty up a lot, you'll be boned. Also, I'm finding that I'm running into high-level enemies. But let's ignore that. That's probably my
That-
personal
you're going
exploration.
wrong
That's
side
probably the
quests.
thing of like you haven't done enough of the MMO stuff and ground yourself up to a required level.
Oh, I'm
Although,
okay.
is that so much an MMO thing as a Final Fantasy thing?
I think it's an RPG
that's also
thing.
true.
I think it's just a general RPG thing. We've all experienced, the enemies before me, but if I go kill some thieves first, maybe I can beat him better.
Depends on the RPG. I mean, there's some things like Morrowind where it scales. Morrowind, Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls in general, yeah.
Morrowind is my I don't know what. It's my automatic Elder Scrolls game. Anyway, so, and it also suffers from side questobia, where you end up doing so many side quests you can't even remember what the main
What
storyline
exactly
was.
you were doing.
But the enemies scale as you go along.
I will
so-
say, it might be unfair, but I have expectations of a BioWare RPG. And a good storyline and good characters is part of my set of expectations.
Right.
And then they dump you out into this place, and there's like plants everywhere. Yay. But like, it's so sparse and unpopulated, and it's big, and I think that's supposed to be nice. I know I'm supposed to like a big space, but everything is so far apart that I don't like it. I feel like I'm in a much more empty world. An example of what I'm trying to suggest is a better way of doing it is if you look at Fallout New Vegas,
Right. Yes.
where you couldn't help but fall over a person. They might not be involved with the quest, but it was a person. You could talk to them.
There was a guy living in a shack. You know.
There was a guy living
You
in a
could steal
shack.
his
There
spoons.
was an exploded crater with the story of a child who was playing with a doll or something that died there. Or there was things, and this is like there's a hill. What's on the other side of the hill? Oh look, a hill, and it grates at me. It grates at me in a single player RPG because you have a much more controlled environment. You don't need.
You don't think it was perhaps a thematic thing with the whole Inquisition needing to be formed? People aren't out in the world and more isolated because they're worried about the threat?
I understand that a storyline can push people to stay in their homes. I don't understand designing a game to feel empty. I can definitely understand, if they wanted the game world to feel empty, I'm okay with that. But then they should have given us roads with signs saying distance to a place, so at least you see a sign walking to a town. Or you had a road before you leading you to a town.
Or they could have even given abandoned houses. You know? If they wanted to give an empty feeling, you can find I don't know, everything thrown everywhere. The Inquisition has arrived. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
There are lots of points of interest, but the world is simply so massive that those points of interest are not only difficult to find, but they're also really far apart.
Okay.
And I don't appreciate hunting goats.
Yeah, that seems to be the
You have to
common
click.
thing of the first few hours. Everyone's being like, why did I have to go after those 10 goats? Just
You have
why?
to get 10 goat pelts.
Yeah.
Well, no, you just have to kill 10 goats. Pretty much.
It is something for like the goat's
do-
meat
you
to
do
order to
collect goat's
feed the
meat?
village or something like that.
You collect
right,
goat's
okay.
meat to feed the village,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with some things, but I'm apparently the Herald of Andraste,
Yes.
and they're like, "Yeah, we need food," and I'm like, "Cool!" And I have this Inquisition, and I've got this quartermasters, and this thing behind me. And we need you to kill 10 goats.
You're just the ultimate micromanager. You can't stand other people doing stuff for
But
you.
I've got a quartermaster and some hunters. Can't
so-
the hunters go get
So yeah,
goats?
you're organizing an entire faction of people, and they're off doing diplomatic missions for you, and you're killing goats.
And the obvious response to that complaint, and which is why I didn't say it as my first complaint,
Right.
is that you're trying to make a name for yourself. You're trying to prove that as the Herald of Andraste, firstly, you are the Herald of Andraste. And you're trying to build a name of the Inquisition as not, hi, we attach people with thumbscrews to walls, but rather, hi, we protect the people. You're trying to set that up. The Templars have abandoned everyone. The mages are free. Everything's in chaos. The Inquisition is here, and we will provide. I still don't like having to go and fight 10 goats and they run away. Don't know if you.
I've heard that sort of thing that much, but like
I'm playing a mage, so I did okay.
Oh, that's okay.
But I tried to send
roast goat.
Cassandra out to go begin the fight because I didn't want to actually tank goats. And they just left, and I'm like, what do? What do now?
Rain fire.
But yeah, it's a good game though. It looks spectacular, the story is spectacular, the characters are great, they don't get along. I think that too many of the BioWare games are, all of your teammates are like, hello, you look trustworthy, and then you're best friends.
Until they reveal themselves as Sith.
I'm secretly a
But,
double agent.
but you have to admit, even when they are Sith or secretly double agents, you get along with them spectacularly. And you can say that's because they're trying to get into your good graces.
Well,
but
it's more the whole thing of like, I think you can't make too many dislikable characters in a game.
Here's the thing though, Cassandra and I disagree strongly, but I like Cassandra.
Yeah, well, I mean,
She's
that's, of course,
sensible and logical.
If you play the Old Republic in the Jedi Knight, you pick up a Sith, and he's completely against a lot of the stuff that you say. But he's this very honourable. You beat me, I will help you because the Emperor.
I think that's the thing BioWare does really well compared to a lot of other game companies. I can disagree with a companion in a BioWare game and still understand completely where they're coming from. And I can respect their decisions. Something that I don't do for many of the pixels I see on my screen. I can respect why they're disagreeing with me, which makes me not want to throw fire in their face.
They're like believably. I was going to say believably evil, but you could be
Believably grey.
Believably opposite to you.
Yes.
And that they have reasons for why they are what
But
they
more
are.
importantly, it's explained to me, and I feel sympathetic for it. I think that many of the games don't explain why why your opponent is against you, and you're just like, well, what a beep. I'm just going to throw fire at his face.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on from games, because we've kind of been on games for a while now. What is something else? What have you been doing lately besides games, Dan?
Staying up till awful hours of the morning trying to keep up with Americans playing play-by-post.
Oh, right. This is for Winter Court. Yes.
Yeah.
So how's that going?
Well, though, beyond the 2 o'clock in the morning issue sort of thing. But it's been a very interesting thing. You slowly but surely manage to find my character's voice. It's a bit of a difficult one when I'm not that experienced within the play-by-posts to try and arrive at court and be, well, I know who I am sort of thing. Especially as a homebrew.
Right.
It's a little bit harder because people
Nobody
don't
knows you.
necessarily be like, oh, it's that Asahina who fought off the Fudo cult in the last...
I know exactly how he's going to respond if I talk to
Exactly.
him like this.
When you're coming in as a homebrew who's this magistrate and who's come from one province but is only really well known within the Crane, and you're trying to work out, okay, who would want to talk to me and stuff. It's one of the other things I've noticed I hadn't gotten used to in the first week. If you don't approach someone in a thread where a lot of people come into like the main court and it'll be, hey, I arrive, I'm dressed in this, I put my fan up to say I'm welcome to like any people coming up and speaking to me, and they leave it at that. But if you're not the person who comes in and goes up to said person, you're not going to get interactions.
Right, okay. So you've got to sort of almost force the issue a little bit.
Yeah, you do. And it's one of those things is also with the time zone differences, it can be a bit difficult to find which people you can speak to and not. There's oftentimes you'll be sent off to go and speak to clan X about their problems, and the person who you need to speak to is an Australian, and he's online in his evening when it's your morning. So
do you have a lot of conversations that are like one post a day as a result, or
It
do you get a lot of
depends.
like rapid fire?
It can
Post,
be
post, post,
sometimes. Well, this is the thing when it's my stay up till 2 a.m. because that's when I catch the people between midnight and 2 a.m. Catch all the Americans who have just logged on in the morning.
Yeah.
But it also depends on the thing. I've been a lot of involved in an investigation on the site. It's been run by one of the GMs who's based in like the European.
Okay.
So there's a lot of rapid fire posts that come quick, and the page count gets high very quickly. But yeah, there'll be sometimes where, particularly dealing like with the crane, dealing with the spider delegate. A lot of the crane players that are dealing with them are European players or in the European timelines, while the Spire players an American.
I wonder if that like tells us something about the way the world's populations think. In that you get more European cranes and more American spiders.
I don't know. I think the main thing with the spider players there was it's a lot of people who are interested in having a difficult time at the role-playing thing.
Right, okay.
I have a lot of respect for them for trying that, because it's not easy being the clan that no one wants to speak to. The lion have refused to speak to them at all. Outright.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
no
they
one. It was very interesting. The crab were dealing with them. I guess that's just crab pragmatism for them.
Practicality, yes.
But yeah, it's been a very interesting one.
We've dealt with rats before.
Hey, well, it was interesting. Like, the new voice who's a hitter.
Right. Oh yes, is it a she?
It's a he. He's Angry Crab's son.
Yeah.
So it's his first thing, because he's been meeting with all of the clans, and the first clan he wanted to meet with was the spider.
Oh right.
So that was kind of interesting. I think that was more of a throwback to the spider coming second at the Euro Champs, I think it was.
Okay.
So I think that was the thing there. What's also been very interesting is the regent that they've chosen, because with L5R and everything, all that, the players in the trading card game can win tournaments, and winning that tournament gives a storyline.
Yes. Oh yes.
Yes. So at the last European Championships, the storyline prize was the Empress is going off into meditate on which heir she thinks should take over, which in itself is a bit of a weird one, considering that you'd expect the oldest one to be, but it's a Waco, which quite against the line of anything. So she went off to go and meditate, and the winner would have a person in their clan be the regent. So the person who won was a Unicorn Clan player, and this player had previously put in money at an auction tournament. Right. The auction tournaments are very interesting because they're for charity. So what will happen is they'll give you special abilities. So once per game you can spend a token, and the token costs you $10 for your whatever, and they'll allow you to draw a card during your turn.
So it gives you an unfair advantage.
So it gives you an unfair advantage if you donate.
You're charitable.
But you're charitable, so it's all for a good cause, sort of thing. So this man won a tournament a while back, and he named a character that hasn't been released yet, but will be released in the coming set after his daughter.
Okay, what's his daughter's name?
I think it's Sia.
Oh, so it does sort of fit in the universe.
Yes. So what he did was he named a character Ataka Zosia.
Ah, okay.
And they made a card for this girl, and the girl's a young girl, so I think she's about 10 or so. So the card is a 10-year-old girl who has some sort of mystical connection. Her eyes glow white and everything like that on occasions. So he won the European Championships and chose this character that he had managed to win in a previous tournament to be the regent. So it's very interesting to see how much they allow players to influence the storyline, and it's one of my favorite things about Alpha.
Dad's a good card player, and now my daughter will be remembered for centuries.
by a select core of card game players.
The region's been very interesting because of that whole spiritual thing of just randomly being in court, and all of a sudden her eyes glowing white, and pointing out star charts and being like, oh no, there's 2 stars over here that you haven't seen, and them going and looking and being like, wait, no, and using spy glasses or whatever finally, and being like, oh wait, no, they're right. Oh dear, our astrology charts are a bit. We base our decisions on this, on how to marry people and who's cursed.
You're divorced.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's been a very interesting thing with that. It's interesting to see. At the moment, it's as far as my side is, it's Crane versus Imperials, which is proving difficult and interesting because the Imperials are very much trying to throw their weight around, and a lot of the clans are accepting it instead of being like, you guys are Imperials, but you're not like Iwako.
Yes.
Stop
yes.
acting like you're Iwako. So it's been a lot of just trying to be, look at those mean, nasty guys. You don't really want to have to deal with them. Come be with the Pleasant Crane clan. See, we can push their buttons and get away with it. You want to deal with us.
And we're good at pouring tea.
That too. It's also been interesting. You'd expect us to also be like the ones that, hey, we're going to duel and all sorts of things, but we're trying to be holding off and being courteous and all that. So at the moment, I think it's the Crab who are leading with the number of duels that they've had.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been very interesting. There was
Just imagining Winter Court Crab is like keeping silent in a corner and everyone's chatting, and then it dies down a bit and somebody's like, Mr. Crab Summer, is there something wrong? Have wood for sheep?
Yeah. I'm interested in like Yeshes with the character, or even both of you guys, the character that the crabs in that role-playing game that I've been running, who's their lord, is represented at the Winter Court by a player. And he's been doing pretty well. He's now the crab delegation head. He won the poetry contest, beating a Kakita in the final.
Okay. Was it very crabby poetry?
Well, the whole thing with it is that it's the Winding Water Banquet, which is between every haiku that you give, you have to take a cup of sake. And crab being crab, that's kind of, hey, well, my earth ring's nice and high, so I don't get drunk as quick.
So his poetry wasn't as slurred.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, it was quite lovely about that, because his whole character is, hey, he was in love with the scorpion, but he was sent off to the colonies and had to work his way back into the mainland to, like, be worthy enough of her. And he eventually managed to do it. So all of his poems were of his love for his wife.
Aww.
Yeah. While the crane was, I don't know if you know the card, there's a guy called Kakita Bure. And he is literally the whole thing of like bully, but like the
yes.
Japanese romanization of it, of Bure.
Yeah.
And he's a braggart. It's even on his card, braggart.
Okay.
So he was just boasting about everything. And in the end, I think the last roll that they did, there was like a difference of 2.
So it was close.
So it was very close. The Kakita didn't fall out in horrible disgrace and lose lots of honor and stuff.
Okay.
'Cause that unfortunately happens. that was an interesting one. One of the crabs fell into the river.
Oh, from all the sake.
Yes. Chosen as a celestial dragon.
Fantastic.
Such a crabby thing to do as well.
Yeah, lost like a full 5 points of glory. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to him.
Well, we're actually running a bit long now.
Yeah.
Is there any really, really cool stuff you've been doing?
Goblins and gnomes.
Yes. Goblins
Hearthstone.
and Gnomes. The Hearthstone expansion came out.
Ugh, so random. So
By the time you're listening to this, it's probably been out for a few weeks.
probably, yeah.
It adds a lot of new cards. I've only played it.
Did you play with new 3 packs, or have you only been doing
if
like the
you
arena
log
runs?
in, well, by now it'll be too late. So sorry.
Yeah,
If you logged in when they released the expansion till the 19th of December, you got 3 free packs of cards. So congratulations if you got them. Sad if you didn't. Sorry.
Some of those cards are so ridiculous. The freaking shamans have had such a ramp up with some of their cards. It's ridiculous. That new ogre of theirs, which has like Wind Fury and drops for 4 and is like a 5/4. Oh well, I'm just gonna kill everything now.
Do you play Hearthstone yet?
Yes, I do, actually.
Okay.
I'm excited. There's a card, I can't remember what it is exactly, sorry. But there's a card that gets +2 attack whenever you play a minion with 1 attack power.
No, I think that's the other way around. I think it's when you play a 1 strength 1, it increases that thing's strength, wasn't it? Because it's the Hobgoblin, where it's like if you play a 1/1, give that 1/1 extra 2
I was
attack.
just thinking, I play priest decks and rogue decks regularly, and just giving the Hobgoblin stealth and then playing like a Violet Teacher or an Imp Master.
It's not bad something, but I think you're going to see a lot of that with Pally, because there's that muster card as well.
And also the Pally hero power.
Hero power as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a big stacking thing there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't play Pally very regularly, so
I love my control Pally. There's so many board wipes.
Yeah.
It's one of my more favorite. Like after hitting rank 16 or so, it's just all this other things are just boring.
And one of the new legendaries.
Zulok is so hard. Like they've made a lot of things. Because Zulok used to be that like, you just have to build that deck if you want to get it higher in the ranks because it's just needed.
Explain to us what a Zulok is.
So the whole concept of zoo in card games is play the best cards for the least amount of resources, always. So the Zulok is very much, hey, there's a bunch of 2/1 minions that have some effects or whatever that cost 1 mana. Let's put those in. And it works really well for the Warlock class because of its ability of pay 2 mana, pay 2 life, draw card. Which means you can consistently keep good cards in your hand for keeping out playing as cheap. And that's quite an effective way with that particular Zulok sort of thing. But it's become a lot more difficult with a lot of the cards that have come out. The clock is a bit faster with a lot of other things.
They're quite good at. I've noticed they're quite good at balancing the game. They're taking care to make sure nothing really overpowers it. No build is really becoming too overpowerful. They're quick to nerf any card that seems to be giving an unfair advantage.
They are, but there's a lot of decks that are just strong. If you looked at what they call the championship at BlizzCon?
Hearthstone Championship?
Yeah, whatever they call it.
Let's go with that.
But everyone had what was it? I think it was everyone had a control warrior. Everyone had a hunter deck. And
Hunter nerf.
I remember there was one more that they had, like everyone had. Everyone had like a Miracle Rogue. Just because Miracle Rogue.
They nerfed Miracle Rogue when the game first was in beta, and it's apparently not stuck.
Well, it's slower, but I mean, it's still very effective to have the Miracle Rogue. To explain what that is a 1 turn big. Hey, I've got this sort of
like
thing.
Sudden burst of damage kind of thing.
Okay. And it's more of a, for the Miracle Rogue in particular, it's more of a, hey, we've got Van Cleef, who's a card that however many more cards you've played before him, he gets bigger, and then they stealth him.
Yes.
Which means that he can't be targeted and he can't be attacked, sort of thing.
So
and then the next turn he swings for 20 or whatever.
Right. Super Ninja.
Yeah, but which they're okay with, as far as looking at what they've like developed, because there was a stage where there's the 1 turn kill warrior where it was I play 2 big creatures for relatively little because I'm on low life, I give them charge and they go in and wipe you out in 1 turn, which isn't a lot of fun. But
charges you don't even have any chance of stopping.
But with Miracle Rogue at least it's, hey, I've played a turn.
Good
you
luck.
can see what there is. You can put up some taunt or do something.
Freeze him with an AoE
Blizzard.
freeze.
Return your cards to your hand. Hi, I'm a rogue.
Yeah.
But the Leroy Miracle Rogue has been nerfed.
Leroy.
Very
Oh,
heavily.
just hey, it's increased Leroy's mana cost.
Thankfully.
Thank goodness.
The amount of
because
times I've died to a Leroy, like where I'm about to kill the guy in the game.
no, I've died to a triple Leroy, which should never exist.
Oh, have you ever seen that? There's that one combo where like the chamois and they put out like 5 Leroy Jenkins on a single
On
turn.
a single turn, and then you're like, what is my life right now? And then end.
At least you have chicken.
Yeah, at least he got
At least you ain't chicken, whatever that line is. Okay, so that's the end of what you're doing. We've been doing a lot, obviously. And there's a lot we haven't even covered, but
Absolutely.
It's about to be the
such is
December.
what you're doing.
Yeah, it's about to be December, which means a ton more.
And welcome back. We're here now with a little new section. Well, it's a new section, but it wasn't supposed to be a new section because we were supposed to include it in our first episode and we didn't because we forgot.
It happens.
Yes. So this section is a little section we called A Wild News Headline Appears. And what's going to happen is I'm just going to go through 1 or 2 news headlines that have recently occurred, and we'll chat about it and perhaps what we think about the news. So The first one I have on my list is Jonathan Frakes, who is Commander Riker from Star Trek, if you know who that is. Yes. Wants to direct Star Trek 3. Apparently, the previous director... it gets a bit confusing because there's...
Abrams is the producer or director?
It seems to be like a dual role, because he does like both or something. And then there's
expected.
another director who's now like, no, I'm out, I don't have time to do... And Abrams is also probably doing Star Wars, yes. So, do you think Jonathan Frakes would make a good director? I mean, he has directed other Star Trek episodes before. Yes.
As someone who's just recently gone through TNG again, because I do that on occasion.
Right, yes. That happens to all of us. TNG is the next generation, by the way, for those who don't know.
I should obviously have said that, yeah. Anyways, I've recently rewatched through them, so I'm familiar with the episodes he's directed.
Right.
I have faith that he knows what's supposed to go into them, but with studio influences, and he's not that strong of a producer, actually, because he hasn't had too many big roles behind his name.
Maybe he'll just get rid of the lens flare. That's all we can hope for.
If he can get rid of the lens flare, that would be nice, but the more large projects you have to your name, the more you can tell the studio no, and they won't be like, get rid of the sky. And unfortunately, Frakes just doesn't have that kind of, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have that kind of clout.
No, of course.
Yeah. What storyline do you think they're going to do with the next one anyway?
I can actually answer that. Yeah. Well, the original, this is off the current projected script or whatever. They haven't actually confirmed it or finalized it or anything. But supposedly the storyline revolved around time travel and trying to save Vulcan from being destroyed.
Again,
I was kind of like, really, you're playing that card again?
That's that's quite deep, like in there, because it's already like a time looped thing, and now they're going to time loop it again.
Yes.
How long before what's it? The time police like show up? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the alternative is that at the end of this one they go, we've fractured the timeline too much. We can never time travel again.
That's not.
And seal themselves off from that crap.
At least until the next movie.
Well, no, the dismissers have like Jean-Luc arrive and be like, "What are you doing?"
Curse slap. I do want. Vote.
Yeah.
I took time off from talking with Shakespeare for this slap.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, that's that headline. So the next headline. This is quite a good one for you, Yesh, because I know you're a Doctor Who fan. And the headline was, the executive producer Stephen Moffat confirmed that there's a strong chance the next Doctor will be a woman.
Okay, I do have an opinion on this. If
Yes,
you're done with the headline.
Yeah, well, he was speaking at the Sky Women in Television and Film Awards, so it's kind of appropriate that he announced it there.
Didn't they say that about the current Doctor last time?
Actually, that's literally what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
The reason why that came up as an option was because the Master showed up as a female.
He was out of lives, hey, the Master.
He was supposedly out of lives, but no, he was on his last life.
Right.
This is his supposed last life. Yeah. But like anyone cares, if the Master is popular, he'll come back.
Plot MacGuffin, go!
It's the Whoverse, let's be honest with ourselves.
Yes.
Also, it has been hinted in the TV series that the Master visited Gallifrey recently. And Gallifrey is the place where they can grant you a new regeneration
It's like their
cycle.
home world or whatever, or their home bottled.
It's their bottled home city universe planet. But the Doctor recently got a new set of regenerations from Gallifrey, and if the Master visited Gallifrey, it's entirely possible he could just steal a new set of regenerations. But ignoring that, because let's be honest, the Doctor Whoverse has never been about science, it's always been about fiction.
Hey, look, the moon, it's totally an alien egg.
That one.
All along.
And timey-wimey,
Wibbly wobbly
stuff.
Yeah,
Anyways, the Master became female and the Doctor displayed no surprise, was what Moffat specifically stated. And that is because gender is one of the things that can change with each regeneration. He also went on to say that it's about time we had a female Doctor. He didn't say the next one would be that.
Okay.
He has previously stated that he wants a female doctor, and he's said it for 2 regenerations now.
Yeah.
He's brought it up in multiple interviews, and yet we've had literally a slew of male doctors.
I think they'll have a male companion, or
The
will they keep a
most-
female companion?
The most important thing, I think, is that Moffat can't write woman. He's bad at it. He's extremely bad at it. They recently hired a female writer specifically for Jenna Coleman. Which is,
I remember that as well. It was like the first female writer on Doctor Who,
On Doctor Who.
For like 6 years or something.
there was some dissatisfaction with the way the previous companions had been written
Right.
because Billie Piper was the MacGuffin, and everyone after that's just been terrible. They were good characters, and I could love them while they were on screen, but if you perform just the least bit of from a distance examining what the characters do, it was not great for women.
Right, it was a bit
So they got
three-dimensional.
a female writer, and they got Jenna Coleman to be a bit more
Human.
acceptable to people. Human, yeah.
Natural, yeah.
I think they did well with Jenna. She was a bit too emotional at times, like she flipped switches a lot. But
Bipolar.
she was
Or bi-winning.
extremely bipolar. When she decided to leave the doctor, it was literally best day ever. I'm never seeing you again. I can't. Anyways, more importantly, I think they need to get rid of Stephen Moffat before they consider a female doctor. I think they need to get rid of Stephen Moffat before they consider another 2 series of Doctor Who. And I don't believe the
You think
next.
like primary writer now, though?
He is their primary writer, and I must say I do feel that it's done bad for the show.
I've heard like sort of thing like his previous episodes when he does like the one-offs in between other people's writing have been really good.
Yeah, his one-offs when he's not trying to combine into the main storyline have been amazing. In fact, I think that's why he became the executive producer. He does good writing, but he tries this overarching storyline thing, and he's gotten quite lazy with it
Okay.
lately. So his overarching storylines have become a bit dull.
The current new season, are you enjoying it, or?
I enjoyed the last season,
Right.
but I didn't enjoy the end.
Okay.
And I think that...
It sounded like so weird.
Okay, well, we're not going to spoil it or anything.
No, it was a bit tone deaf. It lacked the Doctor Who feel, in my
Are they
opinion.
going to have a Christmas special this year?
They're definitely having a
Well,
Christmas
they have
special.
to. It's Doctor Who thing. Like, Doctor Who has the Christmas special. It's just what they do.
I just don't see the current Doctor like in that sort of like, hey, it's Christmas, let's be happy.
Yeah.
From little clips or whatever, it just doesn't seem that type.
Okay, well, next headline, moving on. Sci-Fi announces a new TV series to continue their DC, the recent DC pimping of comic book TV series. And it's going to be a prequel to Superman called Krypton.
Oh, right, the Krypton.
Krypton, sorry.
It's going to follow his father and his mother on Krypton.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
With no superpowers.
yes. And,
Well, with crazy hypertech.
Yeah, and a red sun.
yeah, Super Krypton, Super Science. I don't know if you saw the Superman movie. Which one was it where they started on Krypton?
They started on Krypton
one
in
of
the
the new ones.
latest one. The
No.
Lost Superman.
Yeah, the latest one, which I have
Oh, yes,
not watched.
okay.
They started on Krypton.
I actually quite enjoyed that, where they started on Krypton and like they showed you sort of the society and stuff and why they were having trouble and whatnot.
Yeah.
I always thought like the animated series did that well.
I
Animated
can't
series
actually
did do
remember
it well,
how they
but
did it.
in the latest one, we started out with the Science Council and how they were
Yes,
refusing
okay, so it
to...
was the latest one.
Yeah,
I thought
it
it was
is the
the
last
previous
one.
one.
No,
It's the Cavill one. It's the
Okay,
Henry Cavill
yeah.
one, which then immediately degenerated into Twilight nonsense. But while it wasn't Krypton, it at least made sense, and I approve of making sense in movies. So
Yes.
it was a good start, but this feels like so much of a cash-in that I'm
Yes, well,
just
they,
disapproving. And if they do what they did with Gotham, I'm just going to be so depressed. Well, the green light in the sky, it looks like a Green Lantern. I'm going to be
No.
very...
well, my favorite part in Gotham is like in the beginning, where there's the forensic specialist guy, and he's like, "I so love giving you guys riddles. Oh, Mr. Enigma, you're so good at riddles."
That's
I'm a riddler.
horrible.
Then
Smile,
they show
wink.
Poison Ivy with a flower.
Oh, yes,
It's
yeah.
I'm like, they're not them yet.
Yes.
They can't be, because...
But
There's no Batman
the
yet.
reason why they're doing it, though, what I think, is not for people who know the setting. Yes. No. They're trying to pull other people in, because people who don't know who the Riddler is, who don't know who Poison Ivy is.
But see, a lot of their references are semi-subtle or at least semi-buried.
Yes, yeah. Like if you didn't know Poison Ivy, you wouldn't even notice that
little girl playing
was Poison
with the
Ivy.
flower.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it is for people who know, because a lot of the references
I
are.
don't know, it's probably not necessarily for people to know, but people who are familiar with the previous movies.
Yeah,
sort of thing. 'Cause,
maybe. That might
you're
be true
right.
as well.
You're right.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm actually enjoying the series, mostly from like Penguin's perspective.
Yeah. I can't say it's bad writing, but the caching continuously makes it feel cheap.
But they need to do it, because if they didn't do it, then people would be like, but this isn't Batman at all.
How do you feel about the other two DC series with Arrow and Flash?
Okay, I'm a huge fan of The Flash before the series came out, and I
Yeah.
approve of the series.
Oh,
It's
okay.
rare that I can say that.
Have you watched the crossover episode?
I have watched. There's a crossover episode
it's
in
the
the Arrow,
double-
and there's a crossover
Yeah.
episode in Flash, and they're both done really well.
Yeah.
I must say the directing and the guys who do the producing and everything for those, they're taking it seriously, which is something that has never been done before with these kind of franchises, and it's going really well.
What I'm actually finding is, I think DC, because they're not winning in the movie arena against Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying, but they're not.
They're
Let's
not
be
really-
honest here. Marvel's got a much bigger clout in the movie arena right
But
now.
considering there's like what rumors that Sony are being forced to hand over Spider-Man back to Marvel because
Yes.
they're not making money, so I think
Yes.
Marvel's making big roads
Yes.
there.
So I think DC are trying to counter by dominating the TV series.
On the other side of the coin, I think a lot of people are forgetting, and I think it's very important that we try and remember, DC has been making the animated movies with spectacular quality for decades.
Yeah.
They have been giving us our anime. They've been giving us our comic book movie fix for decades, and their movie universe is fantastic.
Yes.
But they weren't trying to emulate Marvel at that time. They were just trying to do their own thing.
It's that constant thing of, I don't know, the producers and stuff with the DC movies, they either go very camp, like they
Yeah.
did in the 90s, or they go very serious, like the Dark Knight like the trilogy. And it's such a disconnect from sort of like thing.
What the universe is as far as the comic books are concerned.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I agree
yes.
100%. They're trying to appeal to a wider audience, and they're giving up on those people who read the comic books. I think that's the exact opposite of what you should be trying to do when you make a comic book movie. But hey, I didn't make the Ninja Turtles, what do I know?
Yeah, no. Well, you see, like I don't know. I think it's a big thing around also just the setting and stuff. You have DC, which is very overpowered. We don't have really much weaknesses
Yeah,
characters, where
yeah.
it's sort of power fantasy sort of thing. Where Marvel has that more relatable human sort of like side to it.
Absolutely.
But I think that translates a bit easier into a movie and sort of thing. And I think as much as Superman is knowledgeable sort of thing, like your Spider-Man, that was a lot of the thing there. It's a bit of a surprising one that Marvel have managed to do with the characters that they have. I mean, I'm sure Cap is big,
Yeah.
Captain America sort of thing, but there's a lot of like the other characters where you wouldn't have thought like Thor, I would have said originally, would have been as big a thing. Just like be, hey, let's go with this.
Yeah, you wouldn't have thought you'd get a second movie, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you'd be moved into
Well,
the Avengers. sort of
Loki
thing,
was
and-
loved. Forget
Yes,
Thor for a second.
okay, yes.
Loki
Yeah.
is madly
If
loved.
Loki wasn't in that movie, he would.
I don't think we would have gotten a
done.
second Thor movie
Yes.
if there wasn't Loki. And in fact, even when our bad guy switched in the second movie, Loki
They
was
still had
brought
to
in
have Loki.
specifically because everybody loved him. And then
Oh,
he
that's
did
what's
his
the rumor
whole-
is that he's going to have a scene in Avengers 2.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
He's
so-
definitely having a scene in Avengers 2, but he'll be pretending to be
Odin.
Odin at the time.
Yes.
I don't have to have sex with my mother. Yeah. Well, he became Odin, right?
Right.
His mother died. I admit that, but
But isn't his like? I've forgotten like his whole genealogy.
his real mother and father were ice giants, admittedly.
Yes, yes.
But he loved that woman.
Yeah,
when she
This
died,
was
his
his
cage
mother,
became.
for all intents and purposes.
For all intents and purposes, he loved her as his mother.
Yeah. Have you guys watched the latest epic rap battle? of history.
Which
Or no,
one?
not the latest, the previous one, last week's one with Thor versus Zeus.
Yes,
Ah,
absolutely.
I
I
missed
have.
That's
I have.
fantastic. Like they didn't do like they start off. They were saying like they start off with the whole Avengers and movies and stuff like that, and they thought, well, like let's rather do this as like a proper history lesson sort of thing about it.
right.
And they rap about that. It's fantastic.
Classic.
They
Yeah.
drop Thor's like talking about the modern day stuff, and he just goes classic.
Full Greek.
Full Norse. No.
Norse.
He goes
Sorry,
full
Norse.
Norse,
Zeus is
and it turns like there's no violence in the video, obviously, but
It's all Lego. That's awesome as well.
it's all in Legos here. But like he starts talking about the things that Thor, Legend of Thor, did,
Yeah.
and that's great. We have to move on because we're
we're going. We're dallying. So we go to the next headline. We still got a bit of time, so that's fine. The next headline. This one I just had to put in because it is what it is. It's the Star Wars Force Awakens trailer,
Yay.
and the fact that they revealed the characters' names in the trailer.
yeah.
So the little soccer ball droid thing, I don't know what it is called BB-8.
Yes.
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 And then that stormtrooper, the controversial black stormtrooper that caused so much like, oh, you can't have a black storm, which I thought was just stupid.
It is. But I mean,
They're all clones unless
Yeah.
you read or know anything about
unless
Star
you know
Wars.
the universe,
yeah, because really, it's now what, a good 50-odd years since
exactly.
the clones were actually made.
Yeah, there's not a chance.
There's no chance. Like they were all 20-something Jango Fetts at that stage, and even I suppose it's a futuristic setting. They could be like, no, they just don't age after this point. But
I wonder if
how many would have died during just like the 2 Death Stars blowing up?
What do you think happens to a stormtrooper when he retires?
I don't think, well, here's the thing: clone trooper or stormtrooper, because
Okay.
a stormtrooper isn't a clone necessarily.
Yes, okay. Let's say clone trooper because you just imagine all these old Jango Fetts with walkers,
Yeah.
like
Gets
Jango
reprocessed.
Fett retirement home.
It gets reprocessed into food supplement.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay, is that in the actual
No.
canon? Or?
But this is totally. I don't know. Like what were the Kimionans or whatever it was.
The people that made the clones in the
Oh,
past.
right, in the second movie.
Kimonians.
probably have like a warranty sort of like thing. Oh no, we
Or
can't
should I say,
return this.
The -2 movie. Yes.
Yeah, that was like the only good parts of freaking clone, like the clone attack sort of thing. That movie was awful.
Star Wars
Oh my
101.
word! I recently rewatched it at a friend's place, or he just had it on the background. And I had forgotten how bad the dialogue in a lot of the sections of that movie was.
I hate sand. It's small and coarse and gets in everywhere.
Yeah, he was just so awkward during that whole movie. It was horrible.
Not like
Let's
you,
not
Padme.
dwell on that past.
I am not making this up. Direct quote.
Yes. But yeah, let's hope they don't do that there. But yeah, no, how they can not be other stormtroopers? It's just silly to think that. I mean, even in the movie, if you think about that, the scene where Han and Luke take the stormtrooper
different, yeah.
uniform and walk in, sort of thing.
So
I
it
feel-
could be anyone below
I feel it
those.
is my geek duty to bring up the other obvious controversy that I can't understand why it's a controversy. Hey guys, there's a Claymore lightsaber!
Oh, the cross-hilt lightsaber with the little shiny lightsabers.
But those
well,
are
no,
cool.
I
It's
think
cool.
those are just vent balls.
Yes,
I think so,
obviously.
but
that's
one
what
of
the
things-
common standard thing is.
Yeah,
is
but I mean,
vent
if you look in the previous extended universe,
Yeah.
there are Jedi who use
Different kinds of
lightsabers.
lightsabers.
There's a famous one during the sort of period between 3 and 4 who uses one. And there's 2 who use it, sort of thing.
And there are
there's
people-
in the comics who it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a crossguard for them. It's just an extra sort of extension that points out at 45 degrees on
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
There's
But-
been a lot of debate about how usable it is, because whenever anyone's gotten their hands cut off, it hasn't been slide down the blade, cut hands off, and there's lots of debate about how stupid it looks, and etc., etc. But guys, the Jedi Order is supposed to accept all the fighting styles and every world's Jedi. It's
Yeah.
not like all the Jedi use a frickin' rapier.
Yeah, I mean, even as the first one, we had the twin that Darth Maul used.
The twin, but no one complained about that.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "That's
Well,
super cool."
yeah. in that trailer where-
people did, but yeah,
But nobody listened to them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put it on record that also, because you're mentioning that it's been done before, the crossguard thing.
Yeah.
The most recent example of seeing it being done before is the Phineas and Ferb Star Wars movie.
The Phineas and Ferb Star Wars movie was
Their
ridiculously
crossovers are fantastic.
amazing in a way. They took scenes so well from Star Wars, it was shocking, firstly. And secondly, they're obviously a Disney franchise, so they're giving us previews about things that
Of
are
what's
coming.
gonna
There's going to be like some sort of like thing no one noticed, and then can come back and be like, they're trying to tell us.
Well, what I liked about it was they didn't just replace all the Star Wars characters with Phineas and Ferb characters, because that would have been like, seriously, they're trying to make like Ferb, Luke, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Instead, they literally followed the Star Wars movie, and then
Yes.
Phineas and Ferb were always there all along in the
Yes,
background.
yeah.
Just
So like they were
off-screen.
following along behind them and stuff, and like it was quite funny. And like Doofenshmirtz was the one who originally designed the Death Star, and but as a nutcracker. And then like the Darth Vader saw the plans in large scale. Like,
I so hope they don't like break that in the extended universe. The whole like who got hold of the plans and everything like that.
yeah, well,
I will be very sad if Kyle-Katarn and what was his name again? Dash Rendar.
from those games.
They-
I love those games.
They have stated quite flatly that the entire extended universe is null and void.
They
but
have,
will
but I mean,
use some of it.
there have been some things. Because I mean, if you look at what's that, the Admiral.
Thrawn.
No, not Thrall. Like during episodes 4, 5, and 6, the one who got blown up
Oh,
in 6 on the Death Star.
Moffat or something.
Yes,
Grand Moff.
Grand Moff. Yeah,
Grand Moff
Tarkin.
Tarkin.
So they've recently rewritten his like origin story in the new universe, and it's almost exactly the same. They just don't mention there's some stuff with his on the original planet that he's from, but it's the exact same planet. His rise is pretty much the exact same. They just rewrite some of his relationships with his family and stuff
By
like
the
that.
way,
So-
I'm sorry.
so-
Have you heard that they named Han Solo's home planet?
No.
But it's Corellia.
Stujon.
But he's from Corellia.
He didn't say he was from
He's from Corellia. In the books, he's from Corellia.
Let us harken back to they have null and voided all the previous
So, but
extended
he's
universe.
like, there's the whole thing where he returns. There's like that whole series where there's like the terrorist group trying to take over Corellia, and maybe like I'm trying to think. What was the name of this?
Stujon.
As long as it's in the system, because it might be that like. Because Corellia has that weird thing where it's two planets actually right next to each other, and they share the same atmosphere.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's the other one, but yeah,
We'll have to wait.
maybe.
And see.
It saddens me. It saddens me. That was like the first like bit of extended lore that I actually read. So,
But yeah, does it make a difference if his planet has a different name?
of course,
So,
it's the same as if like they have kids and they don't have the same names and stuff. And
Oh yes, yeah, that'll be a bit weird.
I'm gonna be
It'll
so
like,
sad. It's gonna happen though.
Yeah, it'll happen.
You know it is.
the trick is to just I don't
and
know.
the Wookiee won't deflect a moon.
He didn't deflect a moon.
He caught it.
He caught it and died.
Or he didn't now.
Yeah,
we don't know what he's gonna
that's
do.
not
I
gonna
guess
happen.
he's suffering from lunacy.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to edit in an actual.
Two drums and a cymbal.
It might be better to just edit that out.
No, that has to live in perpetuity now. Yes, you've unfortunately had that happen to you now.
Was Chewie howling at the moon?
Okay, yeah. Well, so that's the end of our what? A wild news headline appears.
Yeah.
Wait, Nintendo's crazy. Don't do
They
that.
really are.
They're insane.
Right. Okay.
Copyright strike. Wow.
No actual. We don't know if that ties into a game in any way. It's just
No.
a random title.
Yeah.
Nintendo is crazy.
Okay. So
They're starting to get better. They're allowing Japanese YouTube to post videos. But
okay.
yeah.
Well, stay tuned for our main section coming up
And
next.
they didn't pull down Jesse Cox's what's it? The new Link, the new
Zelda something?
Zelda. What was it? Warlords of. Was it?
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about. It's the Dynasty
Warriors like, influenced
Zelda one.
one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they didn't pull his stuff down, but,
No, but
they
he
might
got
have a
permission
deal.
from
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those like Nintendo American people who
Pretty angry
get
about it. I
deals.
don't know why.
Yeah.
It just seems like bad press.
Yeah, it is bad press for them, but
Yeah.
the I want to say the Asian branch, but that sounds vaguely racist in my head for no reason. The Japanese branch of Nintendo in particular is crazy about copyright strikes. They put all of their Game Boy music, so it includes the DS and
Yes,
the 3DS. All of their chiptune music is up on YouTube, as copyright strikeable.
Oh, okay.
So if you play it in the background, if there's a Nintendo device in the background of your video and somebody's playing it, they can copy strike.
Copy strike.
Copyright
That's a cool
strike.
verb of it.
Copyright strike your video, and it's a valid claim because Nintendo of Japan has.
Filed it.
Well, I don't know. They've got some weird deal with YouTube.
Well, I think YouTube just if someone complains, they complain.
No. Whatever happened? So that's why we haven't seen another Twitch plays Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, actually.
So they stopped at Sapphire, yeah?
I can't even remember.
Can't
Just
remember.
I'm pretty sure they got up to like they were playing
They came
Emerald.
up with Fish Plays Pokemon after that, and it's
not Fish Plays. It's Fish Plays Street Fighter.
Fish Plays Street Fighter.
Yeah.
They tried Fish Plays Pokemon as well. It didn't go well at all. The fish just made no progress ever.
Exactly. You can at least with Street Fighter, you can have like how many thousands of games a day.
Right.
So he's gonna pause this now and do
Yeah.
something, I think, for the next section.
Yeah. We're moving on to the
Right.
next section. Stay tuned.
Welcome back from the break. I think we're going to be moving on to our review of Numenera now.
Yes, Numenera by Monty Cook.
Yes.
Quite a big name in the RPG.
Everything RPG.
Yeah, the RPG world, I guess. I don't know. RPG
Verse.
yeah.
His writing's also pretty well known.
Oh, yes, yeah, he does books as well.
Yeah, he does.
I can't remember any of the titles of his books.
Neither
though,
can I, but I know he writes.
And I don't think I've ever read any of them, so I can't attest to how grand his works of...
He's assisted on Giant ITP, so... Order of the Stick is what
Yes.
everyone calls it.
Okay. But
He's
yeah,
assisted with some of the scripting for Order of the Stick.
Oh,
so.
I didn't know
okay.
he did that.
Oh, it's probably just... So, we need to do this thing. What spell can I use?
Well, Rich Burlew and Monty Cook have worked together before.
Yeah, well, Rich does some awesome stuff, like Dungeon Escape back in
Yeah,
third.
he does,
So, I
he
mean,
does.
a lot of that's like even present now in 5th edition. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, yes, Monty Cook Games has developed their new system, Numenera.
Yeah, and what they did to get it off the ground is they kickstarted it, which seems to be quite a popular choice nowadays.
Yeah.
Especially for a new
especially
new
just-
IP.
Especially to get that little influx just to get everything moved.
Yes.
As the name implies, I guess, kickstarting it.
And in fact, with his Kickstarter, he broke a record. He got the highest money raised in an RPG Kickstarter on Kickstarter.
Has that not been like recently beaten? Because there was Cthulhu Achtung or whatever it was that also did really well recently.
I don't know if it beat him because he
Yeah.
got
I know it
$500,000
was.
at the end.
Yeah, I know he did, but I mean there's 2 new ones that came out that were also really quick to solve. It was there was the Cthulhu, I think it was Cthulhu 4th Ed. It was the actual proper update from there.
It didn't beat it.
And then there was another one as well. I can't remember the setting now. But there were 2 new ones that also came very close to it.
Sadly, I've stopped paying attention to Kickstarters for the most part. The people realize that they don't actually have to produce something from a Kickstarter in order to run a Kickstarter. And a lot of Kickstarter failures have become...
What's it? Have mashed potato recipes.
that was my favorite parody. For those who haven't heard, there was a guy who he started a Kickstarter
to make salad.
to make a bowl of mashed potato. And you could pledge $1, and if you did, he'd send you a spoon of mashed potato.
Something like that. What was it? And he sent you like the recipe, and like
Yes,
it was like
well.
if he reached like $1,000, he put a second recipe in or something like that for mashed potatoes.
Or you could add an ingredient. If you paid $20, you could add an ingredient to the mashed potato. So I can't imagine what the bowl of mashed potato looked like at the end, because he raised like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Darn.
So-
We should have thought something like that.
Yes. Why did we not think of that? God.
I'm going to make mashed potato on Kickstarter. What?
Yeah, we should make toast or something.
Just like Rice Krispie treats.
Rice Krispie
People would
treats.
love those. I don't know how he would make enough for people having bought that, but yeah.
Okay. Anyways, Numenera.
Yeah.
Back on topic. So it's set billions of years in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, and we discussed it a little bit in our last episode.
Yeah, we did. We actually went into like quite a bit of detail around.
Yeah,
the
we
whole
touched
things,
on it,
so,
but we didn't go into full detail. So we decided this episode we'll give a full review, because there has been a lot of interest in it on a personal level. Like whenever we mention that there's a campaign running, people are like, oh, and what's it like? So
yeah.
So the setting is essentially they've. As we discussed last time, there've been 9 great. Well, it's in the 9. There've been 8.
There've been 8 great, like up
epochs.
to
Yes.
falls from there.
And each epoch has different sort of defining
Technology
moments and
and-
technologies and various things like that have left a legacy with now where you are in the 9th epoch. And I actually quite like this idea, mostly because you can use it you could sort of mix IPs if you really wanted to.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
definitely.
In-
Well, and there's a lot of like things that you can work with in between. I don't know. It makes it as well as the mashups between different settings as well. Work out quite nice.
Yeah, so if you really love a specific IP, you can easily just include it as one of those epochs, because they don't in the rulebook they don't detail the epochs at all.
No.
They just give you a vague overview and they give you some ideas.
Yeah.
as to what could
That one
occur.
epoch where they restarted the sun.
Yes,
But,
yeah, where the sun
we
got
don't
a
know
little
which
bit of
one
a
it
reboot.
was, but yeah.
And they don't tell you how they rebooted the sun or why they rebooted the sun or
why the moon is terraformed, or
yes, yeah.
why there are extraterrestrials who don't know where they're from and consider Earth their actual home.
One of the other advantages is, of course, that there's a great deal of technology that is so advanced it might as well be magic. So in the middle of this setting, you can run a fantasy campaign or a sci-fi campaign or both.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. I mean, you can do a very Fallout-esque sort of thing where
Absolutely,
you have
yeah.
vaults.
Apocalyptical.
Yeah, and someone can arrive on that because guns aren't prevalent, but you could make it if you chose to
depending
do
on
it.
where you want to take it, you can take it in
Yeah.
quite a few directions.
Yeah. We even spoke about where we were talking about Adventure Time, so things with parallels, where similar apocalyptic world where there's magic, and there's that episode where Prince Bubblegum points out that no, it's just this sort of sciencey stuff.
Yeah, there's
that
no
they're
such
doing.
thing as magic, only significantly
And
advanced science.
it's well across there because there could be people, and there are people in Numenera who believe this is a mystical thing that they're controlling, not a technological advance that
But
they have.
rather some mystical force.
Yeah.
And it might even be that in that there's some sort of weird energy pool they've untapped
Yeah.
using science. Or
Well, even there, we spoke about all the, you speaking of like mashing in different settings and stuff, your Cthulhu's, etc. You don't even necessarily have to have a dimension that you're going to, just another world where that's the norm of what the creatures look like there. And there's so many ways of trying to pull in different things.
And what do you guys think of the books? You've read through the books, the core book. I don't know which books you've read through. There's quite a few now.
Yeah.
There's a core book. There's a player's guide. There's a monsters
Haven't
like
gone
manual
through,
equivalent.
I haven't gone through the
bestiaries.
monsters.
I
Beast Tree. I haven't actually gone through that.
I actually am attempting to avoid reading any of the details of the world.
Right.
So
right.
I'm not reading about the cities and the interconnections.
yes.
Because I'm currently playing in a game, actually, with you as my GM, pointing at Greg, by the way. And I'd like to discover the world. Especially early on when I'm first learning about a world, I'd like to encounter a place, have no clue what's going on, and then have it explained to me and experience
I'm
it.
like the opposite side of that, but I just haven't had the time to read it.
Yeah.
I think like all of my stuff went back into like reading Eberron's lore and committing it all to memory, and now I just can't commit any more lore.
Well, that's actually my aim with the campaign that I started running. How many months ago now? 4 months ago.
4
Three
months
months
ago.
now. I don't know.
We
Like,
had,
'cause
like,
we had those like
two
there were
gen
two
sessions,
there were two
basically.
quick fire sessions.
Yeah, there was a character creation station.
And there was another session, and then there was one that I missed yesterday.
Yes, and the idea behind my campaign is I want to push and explore the world and use a whole lot of different concepts and test the boundaries of being able to stretch things between magic and technology. And so it's a nice excuse to run around the world in every which way, and direction.
Like we said earlier, lots of different kinds of technology, but there are hints about what technology already exists, because there are these things called ciphers and artifacts, and we'll discuss those more in more detail soon, I think.
Not artifacts, but
It's oddities, ciphers, and artifacts.
oddities.
Odysseys, yeah. But the technologies they use are dimensional, nano, energy and something else.
Everything in between.
Everything in between. But it suggests that some of the previous civilizations were spacefarers, and some of them were nanotech users, and some of them were dimensional crawlers. So they literally throw everything together in a bucket and say, have fun.
If you've ever watched it in a sci-fi movie, it's there in Numenera.
Or it can be if you so define it.
And how they've actually structured their fluff base, which I think is quite clever, is they've given you a lot of detail on an area of the world that they call the Steadfast, which is a whole lot of loosely associated nations that have sort of banded together. Stood fast, yes, to survive, in the strange Numenera-filled world. And they've loosely illustrated areas around the Steadfast to explore, for ideas and whatnot, and story threads. But then anything wider than that, you can then fill in your own details if you want.
Yeah.
So if you want to push further, or if you're not really interested in their existing areas, you can very easily slot stuff in on the other side of the world, or on the planet. You've got dimensional travel here, so you could go in a parallel universe of this current world, or the world in the future, or the world in the past. So it's very, very easy to build what you want to build in the system. Fluff-wise, at least.
Yeah. Have there been any modules for it to put out?
They have, actually.
Yes,
There's 4 modules at minimum, and there's 2 more coming, supposedly.
Especially if you kickstarted it, I think they came with several modules.
Okay. Yeah.
But obviously...
Well, the core book has 3 modules inside it.
Yes, yeah, it's got starting off modules. And in fact, I loosely based the first adventure path off, just because I'd never run a game before. I used the first module just as a basis, and obviously players being players, we diverged horribly, left, right and centre.
Absolutely.
But
hey, we haven't blown up Sigil yet.
Yeah, haven't blown up.
So there's the 3 basic modules in the core rulebook. Then there's the Nightmare Switch, which is the Kickstarter backer module, which I got my hands on, thank goodness. And then there's, I think, 2 more on montecookgames.com that you can purchase.
Yeah, and I think they're publishing more slowly.
Oh, the worst sort of thing. I mean, especially with Torment coming out.
Torment is getting its entire campaign setting as a Numenera setting.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's Torment. For those of you who can harken back to the day, there used to be a game called Torment. Planescape Torment. Yeah, sorry.
And now they're making
Torment. What's Tides of Numenera?
Yes. Well, it's I don't know if it's a sequel in that the storyline won't gel in any way, shape, or form.
They won't gel,
No.
but
it is
spiritual success.
Spiritual success.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of putting it. And they also kickstarted that as well. The game.
Yes.
And it also broke a record. It broke the fastest Kickstarter to 1 million in 6 hours.
Kind of
Pretty
ridiculous.
So the release date for that is late 2015. So you've got to keep an eye on
They've got some demo stuff up. They've got some gameplay available on YouTube, actually. And it's looking pretty spectacular.
It is, but it's also very interesting because you can see their idea of what the world of Numenera looks like as well.
Yeah.
I mean, in that demo sort of thing, they've got that, what was they call it, the mouth or the wall,
giant organic door thing.
Yeah, and it's a portal to another dimension, but it's an organic thing.
Yeah, and you go, and they sort of treat it as like a deific sort of you must give sacrifice to the mouth if you wish to travel passage or whatever.
Yes.
You know what I'm actually looking forward to? I think in the future, it's already beginning, but I don't think it's got any traction. There's a Wikipedia for Numenera in particular, but it's got suggested contributions. So areas that somebody else has written up.
Yes.
And it's not a module, but it's a place with hooks and lots of ideas. And what I would love is if we could just get a map with suggestions from different people, and then everybody votes what this area should be. And the most voted for, therefore probably the best written things will fill different areas. And that will give me the most important thing I want from Numenera. Everything will have a completely different feel from everything else.
Yes.
Different writers, different definitions of what the tech does. And that feeling of being completely alien in another world when you go somewhere.
That concept sounds very similar to what Pathfinder were doing.
Yes, absolutely.
With, what's their Lords of the Storm? What's the area called again?
About Lords, but...
No, but just that area that particular place is based in, where it's hey, you guys want to determine what places are here,
Yeah.
etc. And build it up, and what lore is actually in there.
Absolutely. But in Numenera, it can really flourish.
Yes, no,
because
well,
Numenera
becomes
is a define your world
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah.
And after SCP Containment Breach, the way their wiki works, I really want to see this in Numenera.
Yeah, no, it's very, very easy to have completely contrasting concepts next door to each other in Numenera.
By the way, just a shout out to the SCP Containment Breach wiki. If you guys want interesting but like very short blurb reads, go check out the SCP Containment Breach wiki.
What do they do there?
So what the guys who made the game did, SCPs are special containment procedure creatures.
Right?
So they're numbered. And if you look up SCP like 280, it'll give you a story about the SCP 280 and how to contain it and what it did. And they opened it up to the public, so now there's up to SCP 200,000, I think it is.
Oh, wow.
And each of the SCP stories and the lower numbers in particular, as they get voted up, they get a lower number kind of deal. We get these like crazy, well-written and incredibly creepy stories, like the SCP 461, I think it is. SCP-461, it looks like an average and normal house, but anyone who enters into the house has their mind completely wiped and replaced with the memories of one Martha Stewart. While within the house, its method of hunting is that anyone who goes in doesn't come out, so people go in looking for them, and then their memories get wiped and they become Martha Stewart.
Okay.
And then more people go in to look for the previous people. Unfortunately, the SCP agency, which is the agency that deals with SCPs, underestimated this SCP, having not understood that the house itself was the SCP, and sent more agents in after the first agents went in.
Right.
We also unfortunately discovered that Martha Stewart does not know how to shoot a gun. And then it's just this crazy... Imagine somebody took the 1980s CIA
Yes.
and made it specifically for the paranormal,
Right.
and that's the SCP agency. And all of these stories about the SCPs are kind of creepy as all F. Another SCP is there's a Monster Under My Bed SCP, which is SCP... I can't remember the number, I'm sorry.
No, but that's okay. You're forgiven.
Basically, it's a bed that looks just like a normal bed. But if you go to sleep on it and uncover your feet, a little tentacle comes out and wakes you, but paralyzes you.
Right.
And then it slowly peels the skin off your feet. So you're awake and watching, but you can't move.
Right.
And then the next morning, the tentacle disappears, the foot skin completely disappears. It's a normal, average bed, and there's no way to deal with the SCP at all, other than to not sleep on that bed ever again.
All right. So what's the containment procedure then?
They
Lock
put
it up in a warehouse, like at the end of like.
They put the bed in a room, and every 3 months they have to feed it a patient. So they get inmates on life sentence to come in and feed the SCPs that need a person.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, they shift beds or they move to different things, and it's just bad.
Sounds like what's a TV show? Warehouse 13.
Warehouse 13.
Yeah.
It is very Warehouse 13, but creepy, really creepy.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good resource for Numenera.
It is. That's why I suggest the SCP Wikipedia. I'm not going to suggest SCP the game. It's a good game, but it's a scary game, and I don't suggest scary games. It's not great.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the core mechanics of the game, because that's what a lot of people ask about. Because they're used to just using a variant on D20, Dungeons and Dragons, or White Wolf. So they've been quite bold in that they've decided to make their own stat system, or their own core rules.
Yeah.
And how, maybe you can explain to us stat pools, though.
Yeah, so instead of having a sort of hit points sort of measure, or a measure of how much you can do in a day, they've got a stat pool. Stat pools are made into 3 different defining characteristics. So there's your might, which is sort of if you think from D&D terms, is sort of your constitution and strength sort of wrapped into one. If something hits you, you take a fall or something like that, it would attack your might pool. Then there's your speed pool. Your speed pool is very much your alacrity and sort of how quick you can think, but also how quick you can move, your dexterity moving around. Generally, when something's attacking you, if you're trying to move out of the way or dodge that arrow that's coming at you, etc., you're going to be using your speed pool. Whereas your might, you could be using your might to sort of defend against a thing, but that's more of a, I'm going to take the blow and roll with it.
Shrug it off.
Which is probably going to be a bit more difficult task for you. And then lastly, there is the intellect pool. And that one is more so not just a, hey, I'm a smart guy with my degree in whatever, more of a how much of a force of knowledge you have. So it could be you're just a really likable person, and how much you can talk a person into doing something, etc. And each one is, as I mentioned, sort of a hit point total, or how much effort you can actually use.
Yeah, you allocate a number of points to each pool during character creation.
So the three classes that they have, which sort of follow the archetypes of warrior, rogue, wizard, just in a futuristic amalgamation setting. Each has a different priority at the start, except for the rogue, who's very, very fluid. But you choose how you want to be, because it's not really necessarily that you might be the warrior, but you could have a decent force personality if you chose to be that way. But the more you have in a skill, the more things you can do using that particular pool during a day, because tasks will require you to often use, or will have as a consequence of failing it, you will lose points from that pool. And as those pools go down, as you empty one, you start having other bad things happening to you on the other rolls. And if 2 go down, you become in a dying state.
No, you fall down and are unable
You
to
can
move.
crawl everywhere or something, isn't it?
You can crawl like 2 feet.
Right. So essentially, all 3 pools form like a combined hit points. And if you lose one of your pools down to 0, you're at 2/3 of your health, and then everything gets more difficult because you're injured, pretty much. Whether it's mentally injured, hamstrung, or just exhausted. And then once you've lost another pool's worth of points, you become really severely incapacitated, and then if you lose all 3, you're obviously dead.
Or if you just use one wish ring thing.
I do think that it's important to point out that compared to many other RPGs, your rating in a pool doesn't determine, am I smart, am I dexterous, am I tough? You can be as smart, dexterous, or tough as you want to a certain extent, but they are used to determine how often you can continue doing that in a day.
I think that by an extension it makes sense of like how smart or whatever you are. I mean, any role-playing thing, you can have charisma 10 and still have some sort of thing within it, but you're not going to be as good as the person who has
my comment
higher.
is more that it's not a rating. It's not...
I feel
because I have 35...
no, I feel that because you have X many, you would be... it is a rating by extension of the mechanics that come out of it.
I mean, you're smart more often if you've got a high intellect pool, but then we get at the mechanic of edges, if maybe Yesh wants to explain that.
So edges are a fantastic mechanic where whenever you're trying to expend points from your pool, you look at your edge first and it counts as 3 points to spend whenever you wish to spend. So for example, if I had 12 intellect and an edge of 2 in my intellect pool, and a task required me to spend 3 intellect, I would have 2 free points, and then I would spend 1 from my pool to accomplish the task, or at least attempt the task.
So that could actually be seen as
I
being
think
smart.
I think that's
Or
like
it
sort
allows
of
you to be smart more regularly.
it feels like a proficiency, but as you say, sort of like thing. I feel that if you have a higher pool, it does reflect naturally on the thing. Because while your edge might be high, so I think your effort that you spend, which is the other mechanic that sort of happens within it, where a task is difficult for you, so lifting a car off of something, I suppose a future tram or something like that.
Well, actually, let's discuss how difficulties work, because it's quite core to how the system works.
So effectively everything has a rating number, whether it be that wolf over there that's attacking you, or climbing that building over there,
or picking up that car, that hover car.
Yes.
And the scale is 0 to 10.
Yes. So rating from 0, where it's you can do it no matter what, to a 10, which is almost impossible, but still within the realms of possibility of being done.
And then what I quite like about it is that it's very simple in that as soon as you've got that target number between 0 and 10, you then know how difficult it is to complete that task because it gives you your dice roll that you need to succeed in it.
Yeah, so how that works is for every number the challenge is, you multiply that by 3, and that's the amount that you need to get on the dice. But what happens is with the edge or with training in certain abilities, so if you are trained in picking locks, it'll drop that down by 1.
There's also this thing where the world can assist or hinder. So if that lock is in a black liquid that you can't see the lock very well, the difficulty can be increased by 1 if you can't see through that liquid. Or if you have a pair of lock picks, it gives you this thing called an asset, which lowers the difficulty as if you were trained.
Yes, but then there's also a further thing on top of being trained, which is, what is it, expertise, I think it is?
Specialization.
Which will drop it down by a further 1. So if you have an asset, trained and specialized, you can drop it down by 3. And that's quite a dramatic shift
in
difficulty, because that's a whole 9 off of it. It makes very difficult tasks a lot easier. But then what we were speaking about earlier with the effort and on the pools, this comes into how often you can do it. So picking the locks, which I think is a speed test.
Yes, it is. It's dexterous.
Yeah. And say you had a pool of 15 speed, and you wanted to make it easier for yourself. As an earlier adventurer within Numenera, you don't have a lot of effort, but as you gain more experience of the world, you can push that value higher. And what that does is that you spend a number of your pool to make the difficulty go down by 1.
A certain value, usually 1.
Usually 1 initially, sort of thing. And then as you level up and get your effort higher, you can start spending more from your pool. So it's initial 3 and then 2 for every higher.
For every level above 1.
Yes. And that will bring the difficulty down even further. So a high-level Numenera adventurer, level being a relative term, because there's sort of tiers that you can get at, but there's only 5?
6.
6 tiers that you go through. But as a higher one, those efforts become a lot easier for you. But it just makes it that there's a natural sort of progression of things becoming easier. And I think that's one of my reasons why I think while you have a pool that's quite high, it does mean that you are necessarily a smarter person, sort of thing within it. And it's more of a general thing, whereas absolutely. The edge more feels that you're necessarily a trained person within it, because the edge helps you with these efforts, but it doesn't help you on each expenditure. So if you were to spend 7 of your pool to drop a thing by 3, let's say, and you only had edge 2, you wouldn't be dropping that off of each of those expenditures. It would just take it down to 5.
Expenditures or 5.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit more complicated than it is.
Yes, definitely.
So as a nice example, what we can do is say you've got a starting character and he wants to pick that lock.
Yeah.
And the room is submerged in a black fluid of living nanites, so you can't see anything. And you have a set of lock picks. Okay, so now this lock would say be a target number 3, which is like a standard difficulty. Difficulty 3.
I think we should also just mention it's a D20 system.
Yes.
So that difficulty 3 means you need a 9 on a D20.
Yeah, you multiply your difficulty by 3. So therefore, in a normal room with a normal door and a normal lock, you just need to roll a 9 on a D20, 20-sided dice. Sorry, some people don't know what a D20 is. A 20-sided dice, you roll it, you get a 9 or higher, the door is unlocked. Okay, but now the room's covered in black liquid because somebody pulled a lever on the other side of the room. What were they thinking? So now it's more difficult. So the difficulty increases by 1 step from 3 to 4, and the target number goes up by 3. So now you've got to roll an 11 or higher.
12.
12, sorry. Apparently I'm failing at math. Good thing I'm not an engineer or anything.
It's fair after how many years of wargaming you'd be able to be...
Yes. And so obviously as a character you go, ooh, that's kind of risky, because it's slightly worse than 50% chance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some effort. And then you expend some of your points from your pool, and it helps you unlock the door.
Yeah, it becomes very much how much am I going to risk for how much reward thing, because it might be that you don't want to spend the effort because you're gonna take damage, or it's gonna infect one of your pools to an effect that would be similar than if you had used the effort. But in the case of the room covered with nanites, you probably want to spend that effort because over time that's going to be more of a risk.
Yeah.
So it becomes very interesting also because recovering your pools starts off pretty easy. It starts off as just an action in a round. So as simple as swinging your sword, you can recover some of your stamina back.
The first time in a day.
The next time becomes harder because it's then 10 minutes?
10 minutes for the next one.
So that's a little bit more stretching out or refreshing your mind, something. One after that is an hour. Which is even further. And each of these, you still roll the same dice for how much you're going to recover back. So it becomes a thing of, as you're getting drawn out in the day, of how much you want to use at a specific time. I say that at the moment, from our games that we have played, I think it feels relative. You can judge it quite well. I've never felt that we've
overextended
ourselves,
underextended yourselves,
or under either.
That last session, though. I will say also that for anyone this sounds a bit complicated for, this is also the only mechanic and basically the only rule in the game. There isn't complicated grappling rules. There aren't complicated skill rules. There's nothing. There's this mechanic and knowing what your character can do. That's it.
Yeah. On this sort of thing of the mechanic and the difficulty things, we haven't mentioned it as a thing, but the GM is never rolling any of these dice.
Yes.
The GM is just setting the target numbers for you. And this works in combat as well, where that Techno Wolf that's attacking you, that is a difficulty 4, will attack you on your speed, and you will have to roll against that. And the players can be trained in defense.
Yeah. So how the monsters work is it's quite clever. They've when you create a monster, all the monsters they give for you as examples or obstacles. I don't know if you want to call them monsters. Some of them are friendly. I don't know. Some of them just want to eat your consciousness or something. Usual.
I just want your dreams.
And they have a difficulty number exactly like that lock. There'll be difficulty 3 to overcome that cyber wolf who breathes flames. And but because he breathes flames, you can tweak his sort of attack characteristic because he's quite a difficult melee a combat encounter to overcome. His flame breathing can actually be a target number higher because he's got a strong attack, but you could also say his Cyberwolf augmentations make him slower, so anything he has to do with speed defense obviously goes one lower from his target number, and then everything just revolves around those target numbers, and it's very easy
It's quite an interesting one there because I was looking through for their new role-playing thing built off the same system, the Strange, which has a lot of parallel universe travel sort of thing, and in the one blog entry, a person actually wrote up a thing of how to convert characters or things from other settings into there using the target number system. So the basic example they gave was just a ghoul in Ravenloft, and how you can just use the DCs for the fortitude save from this attack.
Right. There's a math formula.
Yes, you can just it's just the divide by 3, and you just put that as the different target numbers of the different attacks and stuff.
That's very clever.
So it was very cool of that. I know a couple of people have even done stuff from other settings and pulled stuff things. So it makes sense even from Cthulhu sort of thing there, where it's a bit more difficult because you're using a deep percentile in that system to move it across. But if you can move it over, because you divide by 5, then divide by 3.
Take it down to 20, and then you just divide
by 15 sort of thing there. But then round off to the closest sort of target number. Because it becomes a bit difficult there where you have got a target number. What would you be for a DC 14? Would it be a target number 5 or a target number 4? How close are you going to
that just comes down to the GM's call at the end of the day.
So it becomes an interesting thing around that. But I mean, it makes it very easy to create these things because it's just I think this is stronger in this, or I think it should be weaker in this. And there's no stats really that you need to worry about when you're creating these monsters as well.
Yeah, you don't have to pull up a massive block of of different statistics and calculations to work out how the monster
Yeah.
will react to player actions, because literally it all just ties to that monster's target number. You just need a number for the monster, and then you're set to go.
And
Yeah.
its HP is 3 times its difficulty. That's it.
Well, not always, but most of the time. That's
well,
a good rule of thumb. Yes.
Before the modification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's the basic core mechanics of the game, is target numbers and D20 rolls. How do we create characters in this game? This is quite an interesting system as well. I don't know if Yesh wants to explain how we...
Absolutely. So there's basically a sentence that describes every character.
Mm-hmm.
That sentence is, I am a X class that Y. And
Yeah.
the X is a descriptive word like stealthy or tough or strong or something that you feel fits your character. And the book comes with, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 40.
Yeah,
Well, the base one came with only, I think it was
20 or
about
so?
20 or so.
Yeah.
The
And they've released
character
more since.
options one
Came with
expanded
like
that quite a bit.
another
I think it was only like another 12 or so.
Okay. So I would always suggest that you get the character options book as well as the core book if you
yes.
want to.
It's very useful. There's a lot of stuff that you can find online with the SRD, like sort of
Yeah, the SRD is
with
also
that.
quite great.
So,
Yeah.
I always suggest buying the book if you enjoy the game. And
Yeah.
to be brutally honest,
I would.
Numenera is amazing.
Yes.
But so you can get a set of words that describe the basic of your character. Then there's the class word, which is the jack or the glaive or the nano. And those fit in very well with the pools, where the jack sort of hints you should be a speed character, but it's not required. The glaive hints you should be a might character, but it's not required. And the nano hints you should be an intellect character, but it's not required. And then is the focus of your character. For instance, around the table right now, Doe's character is who travels through time.
Travels through time.
And
Yeah.
I am who throws with deadly accuracy. So I am a determined jack who throws with deadly accuracy is my sentence for my character.
Yeah. Whereas like mine is a doomed jack who travels through time.
Yeah.
We've
then-
got another character who is a strong glaive who performs feats of strength.
Yeah, so he's sort of focused himself quite heavily in the strength category.
Yeah.
And that single sentence is your character generation pretty much complete. At that point, you just go and read what the ability does. It gives you a set of changes. And then, voila, character gen more or less complete. Very simple, very rapid character gen, but it's also quite in-depth because there's a large number of options to select from the jack, the glaive, or the nano, or from your equipment section.
So I'll just like mention that, like we mentioned the pools before. Each of those have a certain pool that they like by default start with.
Exactly.
But then each one doesn't just have that as their standard. There's extra points that get given to you to
There are
distribute between them.
Also 6 points that you get to decide.
Depends on the class, actually.
Yeah.
The jacks get 6, glaives get 4 only. Nanos actually get 8.
Do nanos get more? I thought the
No,
jacks... Oh, jacks have the
Jacks
higher base.
Have higher base.
Because Jacks start at base 10 for all 3 of their
Yes.
pools, and then they add 6 on. Nanos
No,
start with
no.
less speed and might.
Did go? Is it no? Do they only get 6 each? They do get a 6 each.
I think
but,
everyone
They only
gets
get 6 each, but their bases are
But
different.
their bases are
Yes,
different.
that's it.
Was that like it worked out? The Jack had the
Had more
highest
points.
total.
The highest
like,
total, it has
points.
2 more points than everyone else.
Yeah.
To sort of
Absolutely.
And the
indicators.
nano had the less.
Jack of
The
all
least
trades.
out
Yeah.
of everyone, absolutely.
But
The glaive is definitely the middle of the line from the
Well,
stats perspective, but it
kind
has
of
more
sort of
might.
thing. I mean, like it's got it by default it has more might and it doesn't
Yeah.
have a lot of intellect.
But once again, those you get 6 points to assign to any pools you so choose. It should also be noted that you get 1 edge for each class, but with the nano, it's defined as your intellect edge. With
No, the nano gets to pick where their edge goes.
nano is intellect.
No, sorry, nano. I'm thinking
Nano
Jack.
is intellect. Glaive is might,
Might,
and
yeah.
Jack gets to pick place to put its edge,
yeah.
and
Once
it
again-
also gets 10 across all pools.
Showing his Jack of all trades nature.
Then each of the classes also gets a special ability every time they tier up and at first tier. For instance, the glaive gets the ability to wear armor immediately.
Or wield extra weapons, or... it was all very themed around the...
Yeah,
The
sort
warrior
of
type
an
of
equivalent
archetype.
sort of idea for that is sort of feats from your sort of D20 system.
Absolutely,
Yes,
it's
yeah,
like
it's very
a suite of feats.
analogish,
Though that's
yeah.
one of the best things. Is every ability feels like a set of feats.
Yeah.
Like the ability to whirlwind attack is just an ability in Numenera. It's not
Yeah.
a full set of feats.
Yeah, you don't have to
Yes.
build up a specific build.
To get that, and
Indeed.
you can mix and match quite easily. But yes, I was trying to say the glaive starts off with the ability to wear armor, and as he levels up, he can train in defenses and or weapons, which of course means that it's harder to hit you or it's easier for you to hit an opponent. The nano gets. The nano doesn't get a special
gets quite a lot of,
ability, but
like
his powers
spell
that he
effects.
selects
And,
are
and
much
also he
stronger.
starts with an extra and can wield an extra Numenera.
Numenera.
Yes.
So we'll talk about ciphers in a little bit, but the nano gains the ability to use more ciphers than anyone else, and then it expands. And finally, the jack gets a training in a skill every time he tiers up.
And
And
he
the
can
other
also,
thing is like every day he can just pick
change
like
his
I
skill
think I
focus.
should be trained in long distance travel or evading or breaking out of prison.
Absolutely.
and another nice thing about the system is how you get these abilities is almost entirely up to you. So you could say your Jack could have like a cyborg Dedacore implant at the back of his head, and you literally every day you just swap out the module, and that's well, now I'm really good at climbing, guys. Ha ha ha! Like software installed. Or it could just be I'm just meditating on what my ancient master taught me in my youth.
Yeah.
And he one day taught me to climb a mountain, and I broke all my fingers or something. I don't know.
And the powers that you get as you level up, you get a set of powers that you have to pick one of, except at character gen when you get to select 2 from the first tier. But every tier after that, you get to select one power, and they're extremely wonderful powers. I will say that. The one thing I feel about Numenera powers is that they feel like things you would normally see in a D20 or a D&D specific setting. Sort of right off the bat, you get abilities like the ability to teleport anywhere you can see immediately, or short-term flight just a little bit further on, blinking, invisibility. It's all there, and it's
Time travel.
Control
Time
over
travel.
magnetism.
control over magnetism, and it's offered to you every time you tier up, and every tier has something that's amazing in it, and multiple somethings that are amazing. And if you're building towards a specific character concept, there's something for you almost every time.
Yeah, Numenera certainly follows the rule of cool.
Absolutely. I will say many role-playing systems that I've played in before have dead levels. Levels where you're gaining
You're
stuff,
like, yeah,
but
hey,
it's
skill
not
I'm a
points.
level 3 fighter.
I stab better.
Or just bards in 3rd edition.
5% more accuracy. Woohoo!
Yeah.
With Numenera, I think when I get up to tier 3, I'm going to be able to throw a second dagger that can target a specific location as my ability. So that's kind of amazing. Also, your descriptor gives you an ability every time you gain a new tier. So you gain, at minimum, 2 abilities every time you gain a
So
tier.
how you've built your character with your I'm an adjective, noun, who, verbs will determine what path you sort of end up taking when you level up. But then you've still got quite a lot of choice based off your base class in which other ways you want to go.
Yeah. Another thing we haven't mentioned also thing during that character gen is depending on your verb and your adjective, you actually get sort of links to the rest of your
To the party. Yes, this is
Oh,
one of
right,
my
absolutely.
favorite things about the system is that your verb and your adjective will both give you either a link to the party or a link to the storyline
Yeah.
that the GM's running. And it'll tie exactly to whatever you've picked. So, for example, if you travel through time,
Yeah.
as Doe's character does, he and it's not even just one thing you have to pick. There's like a list of things, suggestions that you can pick.
So
And you can even come up
the,
with your
in
own.
the core book, it only started with 1 each, unfortunately.
Oh, and
but
they fleshed
in the
it out,
character
yes.
expansion book, they fleshed it out and they
Yes.
gave those original ones an extra 3,
Yes.
and each of the new ones gave 4. But as Greg says, you don't necessarily have to take them. They're just ideas for you to work with.
Yeah.
But it can be things completely different. Like with the time travel, the suggestions that they gave were... you are an ancestor or descendant of one of the party members.
of one of your party members. Yeah, so it immediately ties the party together in some way
Yeah.
with some connection, and it encourages roleplay a lot better. And like, for example, another player of ours is playing a mutant, and it's you pick one of the people in the party, and they immediately hate the fact that you're a mutant,
Yeah.
and are immediately distrustful of you.
You'd expect a time traveler to be more like
Yeah,
okay with
open-minded,
things, but
no.
yeah. Obviously mutants uprise.
Yeah, in the
something.
future sometime.
Yeah.
Yep, the mutants.
Totally feeling the mode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it creates this careful web between the party of different ties together, and it could be something as simple as, oh, you owe that guy 10
Shins.
standard equivalent currency
Yeah.
called shins.
I will also say, by the way, while we're talking about the adjective and the verb, they allow you to completely break your class out of what it could be.
Oh yeah, like
For example, I'm playing a jack, so I'm supposed to be this skilled explorer type person. But I'm very much... I'm not sure if this is how you feel, Greg, because you run the game and you know, because you play in this game. But I'm very much the damage of our group, because we have a glaive and he is the best tank. He will take every hit.
Well, I don't know. He'll also crush everything with his big muscles.
Big muscles. But
Puny
when
Barbie.
it comes time for doing damage in the group, I'm a jack. I'm supposed to be capable but not great. But because I throw with deadly accuracy as my verb, I actually do quite well at the offensive part of combat, and then die immediately. But a nano who
Well, I mean, like
wears a quiver, I think it is.
Well, we can just look at like one of the characters in our game who is that the stealthy nano who moves like a cat.
yeah, stealthy nano who moves
Which
like
is
a cat.
the moves like a cat is not something you would expect on a nano either.
Exactly. So he's one of our best, not only scouts, but also climbers, jumpers, and hiders.
He turned himself into a cat ninja.
Yeah.
He's now a cat ninja, quite literally. The fact that he's a nano plays a very small role in what he can do, compared to picking that adjective and verb in a way that suits his character concept.
Yeah.
So I do want to stress that, yes, in most RPGs you can take the fighter and turn him into something else, or you can take the mage and make him do something else. In this, right from the get-go, without special equipment, without special feats, whatever, you can just pick a concept and go.
And actually, one of the things that I think you can do with it, I mean, we haven't really tried it because we're still a little bit new to the system,
Absolutely.
is when you have that sentence, I'm an adjective, noun, who verbs, you could come to it with a fresh concept of, I need to take whatever's in the book, and that's what I am. And you literally just go through the tables and you pick an adjective, you pick a noun, you pick a verb. But what you could do is you just come up with a concept straight off your head. So you go, I am a brilliant scientist who researches Numenera, whatever. And then you go through the books and you can find analogs that give you that exact thing. Even though you've picked around something completely out of your head, you can then, I think brilliant is a keyword. I think I accidentally...
Yeah,
Intelligent.
it is.
Yeah, we could go intelligent instead, and then scientist, obviously you play a nano, and then who studies Numenera, there's
And
probably
there's one that
something
specifically can rebuild or...
like some sort of
Yeah.
mechanic verb.
Yeah.
And then, so you've got your own sort of character creation sentence,
Yes.
but it's very easy to find those concepts and mesh them with your thought.
Yeah. I'm sure as more people use the setting as well and use the rules, more adjectives, more verbs will arrive.
Yes.
And I think even when we get more experience with it, we could make our own.
Absolutely.
The thing is just finding that balance.
Yes, and the worry about breaking the system.
It's
Speaking about breaking
not
the
terribly
system, there's
hard,
already
like,
one thing that's
something
broken the system very harshly.
Yes.
One of the things is gullible or naive, I can't remember
Right.
which it is, one of the adjectives.
Okay.
And it allows you to roll 2d20s to pick the highest on everything.
Because you're gullible.
But you have inability on mental defense.
Okay, so you're really, really weak against mind flayers trying to eat your brain.
Also against people trying to convince you about things, because you use your intellect defense and somebody's
Okay,
trying to lie to you,
So you get haggled all the
or
time.
you get haggled all the time, yada yada
Mind
yada.
dominated. But then you roll double when you're mind dominated and you're killing your own party. Yay!
But rolling 2d20s allows more events to occur as well.
Yes.
We should
Once,
talk about events.
Yes, when you roll your d20,
Yeah.
if you roll really, really high, so from 17 upwards, you can get it's almost like a critical effect in that a lot of your basic attacks and stuff will just add a little bit of damage.
Yeah. Well, you get the decision between the two.
Yeah, you can
things.
choose.
So they either deal a little bit of extra damage, and it starts from the 17 going up to plus 4, 20.
20.
Yeah.
But most verbs have very interesting things that can happen when you're doing that.
Tying to your verbs or adjectives, you get critical effects that sort of associate with you and your abilities. So if you once again come from the future, you can if you roll a critical, you can sort of glimpse into the future and see how it's going to work out for you.
If you truly roll a critical, you can just completely detach yourself.
Yeah,
from
if
the
you roll a
timeline.
20, you can literally push yourself into the future.
There's the one verb which bears a halo of fire, where it's much more fire based, so you could set the person alight.
I know throws of deadly accuracy is I'm going to pick someone's eye out on an 18 to 20.
That's pretty nice.
Okay. On the other side of the die, however, if you roll a 1, the GM gets an automatic intervention. Yeah. Now, what a GM intervention is all throughout the game, the GM can hand out experience points to level up your character like free candy. However, when he does so, he's allowed to do an intervention.
Not so free.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not so free. It looks free to begin with, but it's not so free. So he can offer your character a free XP point and another XP point to donate to another character. So it sort of spreads the XP around. Mm-hmm. And then he can influence whatever's happening in some way, generally in a negative vein. What I mean generally, all the time in a negative vein.
An interesting vein.
An interesting vein, but making it a difficult task for the party to overcome.
Yeah.
So an example of this, if I may give an example, is when let's say a nano is trying to climb up a cliff face, and he rolls his difficulty and it works. He's managed to successfully climb up. The GM can then reach over and say, here's an XP, do you choose to take it? And if he chooses to take it, one of the handholds you're using is actually a bird's nest, and the bird begins attacking you.
But this is Numenera, so it's not just a bird's nest. It's a cyber bird's nest.
Cyber bird's nest. Or
that shoots laser eyes.
One of your handholds has a little red button that you didn't see when you put your hand up there.
and it actually disintegrates the mountain.
Or the entire walls moves aside, and it's actually a military base from some...
And rockets start launching out. Numenera. So it's generally quite fun to add interesting little twists here and there. There have been instances where players are like, no, I don't want your filthy XP, take it back.
No,
I can't afford
my wish
it.
drive.
Yes,
my wish drive.
I can't afford to lose this, or I can't afford to take that. And
so you give away XP to stop this.
Yes.
Just pointing this out, you lose XP for saying no.
Yeah, not only do you not gain the XP, you also lose 1 XP in payment to negate it.
Yeah. No.
And back to rolling a d20, if you roll a 1, the GM gets to give you an intervention without giving you any XP. So generally it's like last night, the strong glaive who performs feats of strength was charging forward, and he rolls a 1, and immediately his foot just falls in this weird alien creature's burrow hole and gets jammed there, and the creature starts gnawing at his heels. And he fights with that for a bit whilst everyone else is... I can't even remember what you were fighting.
We were fighting an ooze blob creature that had people on top of it.
Yes. Like parasitic ooze blob creature thing. Numenera! And it's quite a fun system because it adds more interesting spikes to the game here and there. And it creates... it adds flavor to the story almost, in that instead of just I ran forward and I stabbed the blob creature, it was remember when I was running forward and I got my foot stuck in that stupid mole alien hole. and then the other character tried to turn into liquid and flow down the hole to chase after the thing. What was he thinking, so
Fuzzy flowed himself down the hole and fooled the creature that tried to eat our strong glaive's foot, and he flowed into its belly until it exploded.
Yeah, he literally filled it and exploded it from the inside. Mutants.
Sounds like that mutant, that damn filthy mutant.
Yes.
I just want to say, from a field perspective, Numenera is very much like a fate system with much more defined powers and abilities for...
I mentioned that last podcast as well.
Okay.
It reminded me very much of a Fate system just because of the
Yes.
gem intrusions
and the points
and the
for
points
XP
sort of
and
thing.
stuff. It's very much, it feels like a more narrative system like Fate, but it's got much better definition on what you gain and what you lose.
Well, I mean, like, we have only had really experience with Fate. It's the not extended. I want to say extended, but it's not. But the quick fire Fate.
Yes.
If you look at the actual core Fate system, it's very well defined and you could actually fit within there. But that's where you're very much making your own rule system up.
Yeah,
with
it's more
stuff
freeformish
there.
almost.
Also, the dice work a bit differently. Sort of thing. But yeah, as we say, sort of thing, it has that Fate feel to it.
I definitely feel it has a lot of D&D tinge in it.
Oh well, as soon as you use a D20 and as soon as it's Monty Cook, that's going
Yeah, Monty Cook does have his...
That's
rep.
where the defined powers and defined... like, everything feels a little bit more defined than the nebulous state that Fate can sometimes feel like.
Definitely. Well, that's
But
sometimes
it
that's
also
like
has-
amber.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the final part of your character that's quite important and a core part of the system really is the Numenera, or the ciphers, the artifacts, the oddities. Okay. Now what these are essentially the whole reason you're a Numenera hunter to begin with, because they're items of power that have come into existence either due to a previous age or a combination of previous age technologies or a left ancient piece of tech.
Some pop culture reference.
Some are pop
wouldn't get in
culture
the future.
reference. Yes, that no longer makes sense to anyone in the current day and age. And what they've done is they've divided it into oddities, ciphers, artifacts, right? And actually Numenera. What's the big landscape-sized ones called? They've got a name for those.
I've forgotten that, but like
But anyways.
Numenera is just the term for those
Numenera is
oddities.
the blanket term. So any ancient tech is a piece of Numenera,
Numenera,
right?
yeah.
And an oddity is something that apparently it does something, but what it does isn't really useful in any way, shape, or form that you can discern.
Self-knitting scarves,
Yes.
self-cleaning hankies.
Or an ever-filling bucket of foul-smelling black paint, or one of my
A
favorite.
head in a jar that blinks once in a while.
Yeah, that blinks once in a while. And it can even get even more bizarre. There was a permanently out of phase with reality cube
Try it.
that's anchored to a triangle that is in reality. So you carry around the triangle with you, and you've got the out of phase circle sphere. So it's kind of odd. But
From the nightmare
is,
switch,
it is.
there's also a length of metal that changes color based on your altitude.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's sort of useful in a way, but not really, because you don't
You can't-
really need
there's
to know
no,
your
There's
altitude.
no number.
And there's no key to. I mean, you could probably study it and
Work
figure
it out
eventually.
But,
But
you're in so far in the future that people have forgotten that.
yeah, they don't even know what altitude is. So then you move on and you get ciphers. Now, a cipher is a bit more useful in that it's a piece of ancient tech or lost magic or whatever that has a limited power supply. So think of it as like a consumable once-off effect item.
Also, various things almost like we've had that capsule house effectively. So,
Yes, so instant
DBZ
house.
with
Yeah.
click a capsule and hey, instant house,
And pop,
or
it's a house.
that Inspector Gadget helicopter,
Yeah, gyrocopter
hat.
It looks like a normal hat, but as soon as you pull the one cord and twist the one lever, these blades pop out and they start spinning, and you fly off for an amount of time you don't really know how long, because no one
Nobody
knows
knows
how
how
it
to read
works.
the power sources.
But eventually it runs out and you've plummeted to your death.
So these are a bit more like in most fantasy games, the scrolls and the potions of the set.
yeah, your
They're-
consumables.
And you're expected to consume them as you go, because one of the things is the glaive and the jack can only hold 2 of these at a time before they start feeling horribly ill and out
Yeah,
of place.
as the energies of the devices start interfering with each other,
Well-
or the technologies don't agree, or,
While the nano,
or radiation.
while the nano has 3.
Yeah, he's a bit more specialized, so he knows how to deal with them together.
But it's still sort of an expected thing that, if you're going to go into an adventure or something like that, you're expected to be finding these, because these are common. There's been 8 ages for these to have accumulated on the world. So you should be trying to use them. It's something I think that's a bit hard to get used to. Is that
Yeah, you want to conserve your resources.
Make sure I use this.
But yeah, you're literally just supposed to go popping through them like candy, and then because the replacements are everywhere if you're looking for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, and you trade them amongst each other. Whoever can make most use out of the gel paste that expands dimensional
Space.
What is it? Space. Yeah. So if you paste it on a wall, the wall is actually 10 meters wide when it's only 1 meter wide. And what?
Numenera.
Numenera.
I, for example, have a sidestep device that when I press a button on my belt, I disappear from reality for a short while, and then I can return whenever I so choose.
So yeah, and there's whole books filled with these things. So and you can make your own. So their consumable nature as well means that even if you kind of accidentally make something that's a little bit too strong, it doesn't really matter because it's only getting one use out of it. So
feels very similar to what's a Gamma World.
Yes, yeah, it's got a very Gamma Worldy vibe in that it's got some of it's quite zany, some of it's quite practical, some of it you're like, because you have to sort of figure out what it does to begin with. And in fact, there was one disc that you guys picked up in the last session, and you could never even figure out what it did. And then someone rolled a 1 when trying to figure it out, and just never.
Fizzled.
So no, I never figured out what it did, but it was a cool disc thing that glowed a little bit.
It's a TM. You learned cut.
Well, I guess that's done now.
Yeah, pretty much. So it could have been a wish disc, or it could have been something that changes the flavor of your coffee to peppermint.
That's what the hedge magic is for.
Yes. So, and then the last category of things is artifacts. Now they're a bit more permanent, a bit more long-lasting. Same sort of concept in that it's got a dedicated purpose, but it's got a much more sturdy power supply or force of energy or whatever it is that's making it function. So every time you use it, you roll, depending on the artifact, you roll a die and determine whether or not it's run out of energy, essentially.
Some of these artifacts have stable enough power supplies so that it's 1 in 100 chance of dying. Others are 1 in 10, 1 in 6, etc., etc.
Yeah. So you can get quite a... I can't even remember what the thing is last night that you got that star. Oh, it's like a stun prod, pretty much.
I've got a camel prod.
Yeah. It extends as well though, so it can be like either club length or like staff length, and then at the end it just generates electricity.
So very like guard of Grievous style.
Yes, yeah. So totally Grievous's guard prod thing.
Yeah.
I didn't
Currently
even
a
made that
scepter
out.
prod.
Yes. And then there's the world class level things, which are so huge and so big you can't really carry it with you, but they generally have permanent effects. This could be like an ancient installation of an ever-changing maze. It could be a giant portal network. It could
Space
be
station.
There's like one of the cities is this ever-moving city in the ocean that nobody can control how it moves or anything, but they've like built up shanty towns on it. So it just floats around, and they're like a natural trading thing. And people have actually realized it's starting to change its moving patterns, and they're all getting worried because they're like, oh, we can't trade enough fish now. You know? So yeah, the world's filled with these things. It could even just be, at one point in the world, there's this giant stone slab that's perfect, like perfectly smooth and perfectly rectangular.
Has apes throwing bones in the air in front of it.
Does it?
Space Odyssey 2000, come on.
I think they're all dead already.
They've all evolved in the meantime.
Yes, it's already been that age, man. That was like epoch number 2. And no, but it's bigger than that. That's like a monolith. This is like imagine a big concrete slab the size of Ayers Rock, but it's perfectly rectangular and perfectly smooth. And no one can figure out why it's there, and no one can figure out, no one can climb to the top, it's too smooth. Even with like suction cups and stuff, they just slide off. And no one's ever been to the top of it. So, which is weird in a setting where you can fly and stuff. So, I don't know. There must be another reason why no one's been to the top of it. Maybe like everything just cuts up. There's like an anti-tick field or something. Yeah. So yeah.
Well,
EMPs.
Alternatively, everyone who has gotten to the top couldn't get back down.
All that, yes.
Because the Numenera ran
Never
out of power.
seen again. Or they went inside.
Or
It's
they
like
went
Nirvana.
inside.
It's like a
Greetings, we remember
Spark.
how to use tech.
Yes, yeah.
I'm staying here
We are the tech
forever.
geniuses.
Yeah. I'm from the first age.
Yeah, so that plays quite a big role in the game because it's sort of the main focus of the game is to find these lost technologies and use them. Is there any other major parts of the rules that
Can
we've
we think of
forgotten?
anything
think so,
negative
really.
to say about this game? Because we've been relatively
Yeah,
positive.
no.
so
Well,
far.
I'm enjoying playing the campaign we're playing in.
I really feel it's got a very good balance between narrative and rules. Like, I don't know, maybe it's personal to me, but I always feel like D&D has this competitive edge to it, where if you just read enough and learn enough and follow enough, you can find a character who's interesting, but at the same time also not terrible. Whereas in many other role-playing systems, it doesn't matter what you do to a certain extent if you can just have generic powers. And then it's okay to choose a generic power A or a generic power B. Whereas if you don't take Disintegrate as a cleric in D&D, you feel like you maybe don't have that oomph that you need to threaten people. And Numenera really tickles my... Well, there's lots of generic powers, but they're all amazing!
Yes, yeah, the rule of cool.
And that's really, when I try to play D&D, I always try to go for a high jump score or something. Not because it gave me, like, combat abilities, but if I wanted to jump a building and someone was annoying me, I could just jump
You
that
could do
building.
cool things.
Yeah. Numenera comes with cool packaged in. So I've got those generic abilities I feel are in most games, but I've also got that D&D edge of, I can jump that building.
Okay, your final thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, that's been one of those interesting ones. I like the free form of it. I like that the setting can be tailored to whatever you need. Yeah, generally good things about it. I would want to see how I can handle some of the other things, necessarily like if there was mass combat or I don't know if it lends itself very well to a politically charged thing either.
Right, yeah.
Because I think that while yes, hey, I can be trained in this specific thing, I don't know how well it would do with that. But I think we have to see if someone does run something around that, or if our campaign gets through to that sort of setting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you guys go in that direction, sure. But
Yeah, exactly.
we'll
Which
see.
doesn't happen very often. Let's be
No.
fair. That's one of the things. I think it's very much, and it's even the description of it. It's a discovery new thing.
Yes, yeah,
So
it's more of an exploratory
It's more of an
game.
exploratory game, not necessarily a thing. So if you're looking for that sort of like kick in your role playing that you need, I don't know necessarily if it's going to be a setting for you, but that can be said for most D&Ds.
Yeah, a lot of the dungeon crawler games.
Yeah.
Although I will say-
there's always a thing like with that. I mean, you look at Eberron with the sort of intrigue between like the Five Nations. You look at Faerun with some of the things around there. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility, but it's not the same as a White Dwarf.
Yeah, it's not
Would have like
White
there.
Wolf.
White Wolf, yeah. So,
White Dwarf would be a completely different thing.
D6s make leadership tests. But yeah, or I suppose like we've seen with it is similar to a fate system still. So I mean,
I know that we
could
can do
build
a
it up.
great investigative thing, and I know we can do a great lying and truth detecting thing.
Yes.
But the social system seems to require that we have... I think that's more of a GM-defined thing. We need to have a goal and opponents against that goal in a social system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, you could absolutely define your character as like a cheerful nano who
Makes friends easily.
Yes,
friends
there we go.
who would be completely useless in the world of Numenera because then laser beams to the face. But
That's how he makes friends.
yeah,
Literally makes friends with the lasers.
but yeah, I think that a social setting, like it's not written into the book innately, but if the DM defined something where there was a system of social politics,
Yeah.
and we could interfere with that, then it would become a social.
Yeah.
See, I think L5R is a system we're all familiar with, but there is a defined set of politics between people,
Exactly.
and it's quite strong, the ties there, and how you interfere with it.
Yeah.
So there's no defined political...
Yeah.
I speak English, yes. There's no defined political system,
Yes.
and it's the ties are a bit lacking
Yes.
in the definitions. but we could absolutely define those.
I think a lot of it also ties to the fact that it's has a post-apocalyptic feel to it,
Yeah.
in that each city is its own bastion of cityness.
Exactly. So
there
there's-
isn't that much politics between the whole. I mean, in the Steadfast, you probably get a little bit more, and we could go in that direction if the party decides to go in that direction.
See, what I would say is one of the civilizations could have absolutely done a hive city type deal from Necromunda.
Yes.
And then that would have multiple layers within as individually closed
societies,
city.
yeah.
That could have that. I'm not saying that that's something that exists in Numenera. I'm saying it's something that could exist. So just to respond to Doe's point about there doesn't seem to be a political system, and we're not sure how that would run. There absolutely isn't a political system. It's not defined in the game, but it can be. And our abilities can do some pretty wonderful things in those particular settings, like turning invisible, for example.
Yes. Okay. And then my final thoughts on it. I'm coming from the GM's perspective, obviously, because I've only been GMing. And I love the fact that it's so open, you can do whatever you want with it. But I could also see that as a negative for some people, in that if you don't have the time or the tendency to go off on random tangents about obscure ancient technologies, you'll find it very difficult to ad-lib for the party.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that you'll probably find yourself falling into the trap of using common sci-fi tropes and stuff very often, and I mean it'll just seem like another version of your favorite science fiction show or whatever, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if everyone likes that science fiction show.
I definitely don't think it's a bad thing. It's just overdoing it, obviously.
But yes, it requires a lot of effort to keep it seeming weird and Numenera-y. In that you've got to keep in mind that it's got to come across as alien, and but not always, because it's Numenera. So sometimes it could be something that seems very familiar but is actually completely different. So
this is a fork.
Yes, you find a fork. Okay, what do I do with it? You eat food with it. No, well, even then, you don't know if you eat food with it because you're 9 billion years in the future, so nobody's seen a fork for the last 7 billion. So,
they all use...
what is this thing? It's a weapon. I use it to gouge out eyes. I have this cipher that never runs out. The eye remover. I use my eye remover.
It sometimes sticks to things.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yes. Well, that makes it easier to remove the eyes.
Yeah. Magnetism. What is this?
Yes, pretty much. I'm enjoying the system. I like that it's quite simple, so that it doesn't get bogged down in rules. That's not for some people, though. I know there are some people who are like, no, I must have clearly defined abilities.
Strict. This is
my number of beard hairs must be regulated by my constitution stat or whatever. But I've always leaned more towards the free-formy type. There's nothing. We'll definitely see how our campaign goes. We're all enjoying it so far.
If I'm a guest again in a couple of months' time, I will bring another report about that.
Yeah, we can totally have feedback, and it'll be like, we're all playing Eclipse Phase now. What?
I'm in an octopus squid robot structure.
Yeah, that's my body. But we'll see.
Be like a bear
the idea is to keep it running for as long as possible before people lose interest. So we've survived 4 months, so it's not bad.
I should mention it's a once per month game.
So
it means 4 sessions, not
not like once a week or
16
whatever.
something.
So, but I mean, we all have lives and jobs and whatnot.
I'm just
Which
saying,
works.
lasting 4 months
Yes.
needs to come with context.
Yes, but also sometimes it's hard when you have only a once a month session to keep interest in the game, and I haven't found that for Numenera. Everyone's always coming and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna."
We also have no idea what to expect.
Yes, exactly.
Which is always the
'Cause
best.
it's Numenera. But definitely worth a look if it's your kind of game. If you have a love of the different, of the strange, of being able to shoehorn your favorite science fiction setting into another setting, and into another setting, and into another setting, into a horrible amalgamation setting of science fiction settings.
And if you make your place a bit isolated from everywhere else. You can run a fantasy setting as well.
Yeah, you could even do that. And you could then merge it with your favorite science fiction setting, and then you can have
Absolutely.
sci-fantasy setting. I don't know what.
Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars.
Elminster fighting stormtroopers. That's what it'll boil down to.
Yeah.
Elminster wins.
Well, that's just because stormtroopers can't hit anything.
Well, I don't know. Like, there's that whole thing of yes, they can, but they're
Yes.
actively not hitting them.
Because they're actually rebel supporters.
No, because it's the princess, like the whole Leia, like sort of thing of like Darth Vader knowing something about like sort of being
So he's using her as a lure kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Because I mean, like if you think about it, there's that whole scene in A New Hope where they come across the sandcrawler that's been destroyed, and Obi-Wan is like finest marksman, like Imperial marksman. Only an Imperial marksman can take out a track like that, and you know, stormtroopers march in don't march separate. They march separate. They could sand people march in a line and all those sort of things. If you think about it, like all the sort of things they talk about of the Imperials, that they're actually quite a decent force. They wouldn't have taken over the galaxy if they weren't.
Yeah, well, they're an elite.
Unless they're fighting Ewoks, but that was
They're having a bad day.
yeah. Well, yeah. This is why is the boss bringing his son to work? That's just so unprofessional.
Dad, I took the Death Star out for a spin today and accidentally broke it. Sorry.
Maybe all the stormtroopers were raised with that, you know, the Ewok cartoon that came out. Maybe they were all raised watching the Ewok cartoon, and then they were like, "Oh, we don't want to hurt these fluffy little friendly guys."
Why is it eating me? Because like if you think about it, like what did the Ewoks do with all those stormtroopers? 'Cause it's
They threw
implied.
rocks and stuff.
No, well, it's implied that they
logs.
eat people. Because remember, they tried to eat
Yes.
Han, so they probably ate all the stormtroopers afterwards.
Ewoks are scary.
Yeah.
Ewoks are scary. One of our mutual friends, JJ, had a funny story about that, if you will remember. Where when they were playing Star Wars Galaxies, they attacked a thing that they thought was an Ewok, and then there were just hundreds of red bars all around them in this lowly populated area, and it was covered in bush. So you couldn't see the other Ewoks.
All right.
And then as soon as they attacked one, all the other names went
like
red.
tribal attack.
And then you're just like, well, damn. And the Ewoks murdered them.
Jump, jump.
Murdered them bad.
Yes. Yeah, sounds about right. Okay, and on that note,
And on that,
that's what you take away from today's episode.
That Ewoks are scary.
Ewoks are dangerous and scary. Avoid an Ewok. If you encounter an Ewok on the street,
Yeah. So
stay clear.
Next question: Elminster versus all the Ewoks.
Send emails to info@geekofalltrades.co.za. Who will win? I'll do a Facebook poll when we release this episode. I'll do a Facebook poll. Elminster versus Ewoks. Who wins?
I think I know who's going to win, but yeah.
Really? I don't know.
Ewoks are more pop culture.
Yeah, but Elminster's
It's Elminster.
Also, a lot of people are bitter about Elminster winning everything. So
This is true. This is true. But on the other hand, they'll be like, well, Elminster wins everything, so it's a no-brainer.
Exactly.
Tough decision.
Depends on if like Mistra is alive at that time or not.
Mr. is always alive.
Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you, Yesh, for taking your time to come and speak with us. We appreciate it. Obviously, there'll be some time in the future where you join us again, but we'll see when that time comes.
Yeah.
And
Thank you very much. It was a fun and interesting time.
bye.
Numenera.
And that brings us to the end of our show. If by some crazy random happenstance you enjoyed what you listened to, go and give us a like on Facebook, Geek of All Trades. We're there. Otherwise, send us an email at info@geekofalltrades.co.za. We'd always love to hear from you. Keep an ear to the ground for future episodes. Geek of All Trades, out.